traffic.
All right, it's flowing very well on Mombasa Road this morning, all the way from the SGR. In and outbound on Mombasa Road today, it's looking very, very good. We're going to keep an eye on that and see if that will change later. We'll probably see the normal Monday, morning traffic, whereby it gets clogged up right around the Cabanas, and then further down it should be okay. We know that further down around Bellevue, then heading towards Capital Centre, in and outbound, that it will clog up a little bit because of the construction on the roads, okay? So this is something that we're going to accept for the next couple of months or so that we know where you're going. Plan your journey ahead of time. We saw traffic had already started as early as 5 a.m., but it shouldn't be too bad. Thika Road also looking good. Outbound today, there's a little bit of traffic as you head outside of the city. Let's take a look at that in a while, heading towards Naivasha, Nakuru, and going out west. Okay, so let's look a little bit more at Mombasa Road in a bit and see how that may change, because it looks like it might clog up. Okay, Spice FMKE on Twitter, that's how you can reach us in case you get stuck somewhere or you find an alternate route that anybody else can use. Do share.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Say good morning to Boniface Otieno, who says, good morning, guys. As always, tuned in at Sega City, North Ugenya. Your views on political and socio-economic issues in Kenya are second to none. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Boniface Otieno, and welcome to Friday's Situation Room. What headline are you looking at, City?
Actually, I am looking at one of yesterday's headlines in the Business Daily. It portends something that has taken shape. We heard it in this very studio, but I'm now seeing it taking shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. These negotiated settlements that people who had been charged in court have. The one that I'm reading is Jumbo Pay boss off the hook in 1 billion NHI fraud case. He's not really off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened is that the Jumbo Pay boss, a gentleman by the name of Danson Muchemi, is not being let off the hook, but he now becomes a witness in the case.
State witness.
Yes, he becomes a state witness.
Right.
It isn't the first one. Okay. The other cases that have appeared in the media were people who had previously been charged with fraud, theft, you name it. Suddenly, that case that had been taken them to court is dropped. But what this, Eric, it answers a question that you've asked often. If they're willing to name, because part of the thing they have to do, they have to name the people they were perpetrating these crimes with. So it's not as though you get off free. You become a rat. You actually tell. Instead of the state agencies trying to break in their back, figuring out, you are the boss. You had been charged. You are part of it. So you know the people whom you participated. Now, this is an interesting turn of things, in my opinion. Because, one, by the time someone accepts to turn and become state witness, it means you know the weight of the case that was against you. But what I'd like to see developing with time is now when the asset recovery group comes in, how they are going to handle this.
How they go. Also, so in some cases where I've seen, even with the ACC investigators, they, after taking your testimony and your statement, they realize that you actually have a lot more information that is not incriminating you, but the information that you're giving is so important in the case that they ask you, okay, so we realize actually that initially it appeared like you had a role in this, it appearing like you don't have a role in this, but then what you're telling us is pointing us in the right direction. Would you be willing to testify? And of course you say, I may have told you, I'll repeat this anywhere. You want me to be a witness? Yes. Because there are some times when, people are just charged because you're in the name. Who is in this chain?
Who's the boss?
Who's in the chain? Is in the chain. So they're like, come on, all of you, let's go to court. And then in the course of the investigation, they realize, all right, so you may not have participated in the wrongdoing, but you participated in the normal course of doing business, but then you have more information that then that can shed light, can implicate somebody, can implicate the other, or even can help the court to understand what was happening. Even if you're not coming to say, this is what CT did, you're able to, being an inside player, you're able then to lay the case before the court and allow the magistrate or the judge to understand the workings of this particular organization.
You know why this is a deal maker as opposed to a breaker is that the strength of these cartels has been the ability for them to be quiet.
Yep.
But the moment people start talking, again, in today's Business Daily, how PS Monaguri hid 63 billion MES contracts. Remember how the Dr. Mailu, the former CS that ministry, said that he couldn't get information.
Yep.
It now transpires that the then PS, Principal Secretary, hid literally, called them secret and would not avail them.
This was now being said in the Senate? Or
Yep.
what?
Yep.
It's in the report.
Yeah, yes, it's in the report. Yes. The Senate subcommittee that has been reported, this is part of what they have now gathered. So the information was not made available for those who needed it. Now, remember, once again, we've been talking, why aren't names coming out?
Why aren't names being...
This one has now come out.
Yeah.
starting to come out
Think-
and mentioning names. And in fact, even in the Senate yesterday, I'm seeing there's a story. Where is that story? Is it in the Nation or the Standard? Where, as the matter was being discussed on the floor of the Senate yesterday, senators were up in arms and saying, this report of yours, come on, put names. You cannot just be saying, oh, this is it, or page 7 of the Nation. Senators yesterday pressed a committee that branded shady government multi-billion shilling medical equipment deals as a criminal enterprise to reveal the names of the officials implicated in the fraud. When they were debating this yesterday, the senator said the deals were not executed by faceless individuals and they were demanding that specific names be included in the report. This crusade was being led by, of course, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who was leading this chorus in castigating the committee, saying the recommendations were not actionable because there are no names.
Because the whole point of an investigation is to come to a head in terms of finding out what really happened. You can't be going round and round in circles and then you don't pinpoint on something.
The final recommendation just says EACC ought to come and investigate this matter.
You found out, you have names.
Auditor General ought to
Bring it up
conduct a forensic audit on this. And then you tell...
You know, of interest, what brought General Electric, I'm using General Electric specifically because that was one contract that was glaring. This is a huge multinational company, but they didn't follow laid down procedures for procurement. And you're talking about 24.06 billion Kenya shillings.
This is according to the report.
According to the report, and the person who sanctioned it, who signed on behalf of the ministry, was Dr. Muraguri. He is the one who signed on behalf of the ministry. So,
As the accounting officer, you'd
Yes.
expect.
he's the one who signed. I would have assumed that the CS would be involved in this process.
Witnesses.
Yes, but
The
clearly
CS witnesses, the accounting officer.
signs. Yes. So here we are.
This one, it has to continue. I mean, it's good that it's going like this, and they're saying you need to name names. How can a contractor fail to appear before a committee that is led by lawyers, and the said lawyers failed to highlight that in their recommendations, the money that he was paid was enough to distribute to 10 counties as shared revenue, and then you fail to mention that? Shame! This is according to Mutula Kilonzo Jr. He's saying this committee is led by a lawyer, right? And this is, even just looking at the vice chair of the committee, is Moses Wetangula, lawyer. A contractor failed to appear before this committee that is led by lawyers, and these lawyers did not mention that in their report. So now, surely, what games are you playing with us? This was a big joke. You have failed Kenyans. These people must be named before the floor of this house.
Now that we have this sword,
Can't be a whitewash at you come.
Yes.
We did a report that was damning, but then in the recommendations of that report, it has all these, but the recommendations are what is actionable. If the recommendations, the actionable bit of it is just saying, this thing needs to
Look
be
into it.
investigated. Look into this matter.
you might as well just have shut up.
Yeah, true.
Because, the findings ought to be, so and so was found culpable. This gentleman is a civil servant. So him, if found guilty, should never hold for the rest of his entire life, should never hold any
Position in
public.
public office.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right? So and so, this was this. This company should be black. That's what you want to hear.
to stop it from happening again. But you just can't be round and round. You're not really saying anything. It's like you're slurring your words with this whole investigation. You're not pinpointing. It should be pinpointed. Let's get it out and let it be clear.
And then one wonders how it is that when it comes to the confidence levels that the Mwananchi has with his government, they wonder why. How can you then wonder?
You have all the ingredients for doubt.
Surely. How? How is that? 14 minutes to 7 o'clock. Situation Room continues. Dorcas Kimotho says you're tuned in from Malindi. Good morning, guys. Nice hearing from you. Noodles, nice hairdo. And then, Latiff, you sound very sleepy today. Really?
Can you sound awake?
Anything.
Eric, sound awake, please.
But I'm so much awake. What is Dorcas talking about? Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Dorcas, I'm very much awake today. It's Friday. Hey, what do you expect?
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
City,
FM,
I'm sorry. I
Nairobi.
did not relay greetings from Dorcas Kimotho in Malindi to you. Sama Wamashati. VP.
I think the correct response is fiti.
Bas.
Oh, really? That's what you say? What does VP mean?
How is it?
Oh, okay.
How goes it?
Okay. So
Yes.
what's up?
That's it. What's up?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
It's what's up?
Getting
Hiya.
this thing.
Other headlines?
So, you know how we talked about the swelling of Lake Baringo? And it seems like something that, it's just being reported, but the seriousness of it. And I looked at the numbers just now in terms of what's being reported. Lake Baringo, that used to be at 176 square kilometers, is now 276 square kilometers. 100 kilometers as a
Square.
result of the flooding increase, right? And so there's a particular island, and that's the island of Longcharo, right? Tiny island, and it has been cut off from the particular area, and it's actually a conservancy. And now, because of this, there are quite a number of animals then that have been stuck there. And so now KWS has gone into the rescue operation of many animals that have been marooned on what is now being called a disappearing island. And if it continues in this manner, this island of Longcharo could actually disappear. It will be submerged and would be no more. So KWS has gone into its operation to save this. The rising waters have trapped quite a number of animals on the 1.5 acres of land, and so now they're working on that. Now, what KWS Central Rift Assistant Director Dixon Return said is that the crowding on the island has seen that they need an expedited translocation, but they're also worried that other regions in this area, in the Rift region, could also suffer the same consequences if the waters continue to rise. So it looks like something we're going to ignore every now and then because, okay, it's just flood waters. There's no human inhabitants, but that's not it. It's actually much worse than we want to give attention.
You know, the first cases, remember, were buildings being submerged, churches being submerged,
Now you have entire
resorts being
islands.
submerged, yes,
Now you have
schools
entire
being
islands going down.
submerged.
Yeah.
So, it's like Atlantis all over again.
Man.
City under the sea.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, this isn't going to go away soon.
No.
And do we hear of concrete plans to actually ensure that the inhabitants who have already been displaced and who face further displacement are being considered? Do we hear their governor speaking? Do we hear the department that deals with natural disasters in this country speaking up? We don't.
No.
We don't. Now we've been caught up with this advisory. It's taken center stage.
Everything else.
And a by-election in
Yes.
Msambweni.
Yes. And this is why I think this advisory is pertinent, in my opinion. Because we have a lot of people whose role, whose purpose role and whose actual role are congruent. They are at loggerheads. And you have to ask the question, in all honesty, what other disaster do you want to happen before you can understand that even the one you've been ignoring was a disaster that required attention?
Because it is quite unfortunate that the legislation that we see that comes about really quickly is legislation in most cases that's going to have a direct impact on the lives of the legislators, right? But in terms of legislation for things that could actually help in the development of the country, it always seems to be lagging behind, or it's never really given any kind of attention per se. You know, things like flooding, all right, well, maybe we'll look at some kind of legislation that would then release funding to make sure that you put in measures to make sure that you don't suffer the same consequence next year. Or maybe not. Okay, we'll get to it. You know, that has been it. We'll get to it. But then now you have a country that's sinking, literally and
You know, there's
and
an
not
interesting
literally.
perspective here. Let's say, for instance, that Parliament is dissolved. What does our law require? When must we have the election? After how many days?
Within 60.
Within 60 days. So in that time, decisions that are to be made in running the country continue. Is that not so?
Yes.
You know, this is now not just a Pandora's box. It's a big Pandora's box. You know why? It will be clear how the country can run or not run.
Without these fellows.
It'll be 2 months. It'll be abundantly clear. And you'll have to ask the question, why did we have these people in the first place? I mean, this question deserves. Or please bring them
It'll be
back quickly.
clear how we cannot operate without them.
Without them, yes,
them,
or
yeah.
bring them back quickly.
When everybody starts passing the blame on them, first of all, starting with the National Treasury saying, I need a supplementary budget so that we can continue running the
And
government.
you can't do that
And
without
because they don't have
Parliament.
Parliament, now we are grinding to a halt again. You see? We required, this bill was pending in Parliament, and it is the one that was going now to operationalize this and the other. It'll now become apparently clear. But also, LSK says after October 12th, as far as they're concerned, no Parliament.
Is it as far
President
as they're
takes-
concerned, or is it something that's entrenched in the law? And I think this is one of the questions that came out yesterday when we saw LSK President Nelson Havi make these announcements. So was it interpretation, his own interpretation, the interpretation of the Law Society of Kenya,
It's
or interpretation of the Kenyan law?
A section of the Law Society of Kenya.
Yeah.
Because the other section does not believe so. The other section has actually gone to court. Remember, the Speaker of the National Assembly is a member of the LSK, right? Even the Attorney General is a member of the LSK. And they are the ones who are going to court, in fact, to say they are seeking that order be suspended. The High Court has suspended that order now because members of Parliament can breathe easy after Justice Weldon Korir said it would be unfair to subject the country to an election without interrogating the legality of the recommendation, because that is the application by the Attorney General and the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly.
You know, again,
LSK, however, says that as far as they are concerned, when it comes to the 12th of October,
There's
where's
no
that story?
legitimate parliament.
Yeah.
interesting times.
I think
And
so.
they have written to various organs saying, we know and we are going to mobilize. So after the 12th, we will demand action be taken. We will demand that we go into a general by-election.
This is by speaking to or writing to the Office of the CS for Interior,
Interior.
Fred Matiang'i, writing to the IEBC, writing to,
Treasury.
Treasury to not pay these fellows after the 12th of October,
Even writing to international organizations.
writing to the world,
Don't
to,
lend
to,
this country
to
money.
the United
If-
Nations.
if-
Don't
if-
give them money
if that
because they're
lend- if that
operating
lend-
illegitimately.
if that lending may
Requires
involve
a parliament.
parliamentary input, don't.
Don't, because there's no parliament essentially from this date. Which is why I was asking, if this is interpretation according to one section, is it not something that's understood in blanketly across the country? No, it's not.
With the law, no.
It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's interpretation
Each,
according to one
each
section.
side, when they put up their case spiritedly, believe me, one is just as convincing as the other.
Yeah, but now you have a lot of people walking around this country saying October 12th.
But the interesting bit is change the fortunes of any of those members and they will shift the argument and argue as if that's the only position they've held since they were born.
But of course, right? You're touching somebody's
Change.
livelihood.
And completely forget what they
Swap
said
them.
previously.
Swap the president of the Law Society of Kenya, take him to Parliament today,
If he was an MP, he would.
and
be
then
saying
take the Speaker of the National Assembly and make him the president of the Law Society of Kenya. My friend, the arguments that these two people will completely different, and they will be so staunch on their belief.
This is the thing about the law, and that is why I believe firmly that when I say we live in interesting times, it's because there's never been a time of such serious education such as this one.
Yeah.
I am beginning to understand the law in ways I'd never imagined I needed to understand it, but I'm beginning to understand it. And also, in full glare of the entire citizenry of Kenya, we can look at our MPs, as I said, undressing in public. We can look at our civil servants doing their thing. And we can look at the presidency doing its thing. And lastly, and not least, we can see our political parties doing their thing openly.
Kabisa.
Yes.
Kabisa, we will see everything as it happens. Also, remember there's a story on page 5 that says parties and IEBC are the ones that ignored order on gender rule in the primaries. At some point, parties were supposed to ensure that there is at least a balance in their nominees.
when parties are busy putting in one character and are not based on ideology, it's then easy to see why they were not able to do this. It was never a priority.
Think of the issue that was brought up by Ms. Chisoni. We had made provision for what we are now discussing.
Yep.
And we had said, let us adopt this system. It will enable that two-third gender rule to be a simple thing. Parties simply appoint. Then you go to an election and people vote for political parties. But Naivasha,
Naivasha.
no. Okay.
Naivasha stories changed completely.
It
Well, we're coming to the top of the hour. Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is back online. www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Oindo Clinton from Alendu, good morning, saying this is your favorite show. Asante sana. Awesome. Moses Gashari, Friday Manenos. Oh, yeah, good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, guys, so traffic between Mlolongo Weighbridge and the JKA turnoff today already on Mombasa Road has gone to a bumper-to-bumper situation faster than you can say Jack's your uncle. It's a mess on Mombasa Road this morning, and it's going to continue that way for some time. As you get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then head towards the CBD and then further on to Westlands, there's a hold up there as we can see it already. And so you just need to go through it with some patience. If you've not gotten onto that route just yet, the Eastern Bypass and the Southern Bypass are also open, a longer route, but ensure that you'll take less time getting where you're going this morning. Outbound of the city, there is quite some traffic heading out onto in Westlands and then heading out towards Limuru, Naivasha, heading out to Nakuru as well. Let's look into Nakuru town at the moment. Quite a lot of traffic outbound and inbound as well. For those who've left Nairobi and going into that direction. It's the weekend, so this we understand. We'll keep a look and see how things might change in a short while. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know where you might be stuck. Somebody might find an alternate route. We'll take a look at what's happening on Thika Road once we look at it in half an hour or so.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Good
the
morning.
only way
How
to
are
start
you,
your
wherever
day.
you are? Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We broadcast from Nairobi on 94.4, on Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, and Njeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We want to welcome our audience on KTN Home. We're live for the next 1 hour on KTN Home. A very good morning to you. C.T. Muga, let's begin this hour with today's proverb.
The house of a person you love is never far. It's a Kenyan saying.
The house of a person you love
Is never far.
Never far.
No.
Be it a parent, be it a child, be it a close relative, be it a would-be close relative.
To understand it, for instance, in a town like Nairobi, just look at the traffic outward bound on a day like today.
Friday.
Just look at it. Where do you think all these people are going?
To see their loved ones.
Yes.
And for them,
Public
it's not
transport is full. Private vehicles are full.
Traveling for many hours.
Yes, and they're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
far. But
They're
it
probably
doesn't
going to
matter.
get stuck in jams. And they do it. Some do it every week. And
Yeah.
they don't consider it to be a problem.
No,
It's not a
at
burden.
all.
No.
Because the house of
Your loved one
the person you love
is never far.
It's
is
never
never
far.
far. Never an issue.
No, it cannot be an issue.
Okay.
And it shouldn't be an issue, really.
It should never be an
After
issue.
all, this is just distance. And you're not being asked to leave the planet or the solar system. It's just,
If it's doable, do it. Make it doable. Let's talk about a story that was in the Standard yesterday. And this was that plans are at an advanced stage to hand over the management and operation of the fixed wing aircraft and helicopters that are managed by other arms of government to be under the military, right? So it would affect Kenya Police Air Wing, it would affect the Forest Service, the KWS, in some instances, Ketraco, Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Power. All of these things in the air that are not privately owned will be run by the military. And then, of course, the question of, and in fact, it even related to that in the story and saying, this is an increasing move that we are seeing the military getting very much involved in civic affairs. And the question then starts to emerge. All right, it's not actually the question doesn't emerge, it just brings the question back up that we've seen military officers being placed in lucrative positions in the public service, in direct service to the public, not just in the barracks, and dealing with defense of the country. So let's talk about Major General Badi, who is now the Director General of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, who is basically the man who's running some of these operations in the service in the city. We've seen the kind of work that they've done since the NMS was instituted. It's a military general. And in fact, the president has said, this man is just doing this job. Once he finishes, he'll go back to the barracks. Then we started seeing this in the Kibaki era when Brigadier Mohammed Hussein Ali was brought in to become the Commissioner of Police. Of course, then he was promoted to become Major General Hussein Ali, Commissioner of Police. But even before that, we had seen military officers in a security-related organ, and this is the NSIS. We had Brigadier Boynet, we had then Brigadier who became Major General Gishangi. Now we have the current director of the NIS, who also came from the military, and this is Kameru. We're seeing all these things. Then look at those that are considered retired, and then they get into public service. We have people like Major General Kihalangwa going into public service. We have people like Colonel Cyrus Oguna, who is the government spokesman now. We have people like retired Major, who's now heading the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Then we have the head of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, who is a former military officer, former lieutenant. Lieutenant Colonel, yes. What is this? What is this move? If you look at it, the management of the Kenya Meat Commission has been moved to be under the Ministry of Defense, where people are just saying, all right, so it's being put under the military. And many have argued and said, this is bringing order into the public service. These are people who understand discipline, they understand order, they understand process. They know, if I'm supposed to do this, to push this from this point to that point, that is what I'm going to do. Push this from here to there. I will not come up with excuses of, the sun did not rise at 6 a.m. that day. If it could have risen at 6 a.m., I'd have had enough time. Because it rose at 6:30 now, I was not able to start on time. No, it doesn't matter. He will deliver. What we've been seeing before is a case where retired military personnel, especially the retired generals, would then be given a portfolio to be chair of certain parastatal boards. Okay?
Or even ambassadors.
Yeah. So retired military officers, senior level, they are named as ambassadors. You're sent to Egypt, like one is in Egypt. They're sent to, or you become a chair. The former CGS, not the immediate former, but the former before this, is the chair of NSSF. We have had Kianga heading a board. We have had all the others just chairing boards. But now it's direct involvement in service. You're coming into public service. Of what benefit is this, do you think?
Well, I think there's a book written by a gentleman called Charles Muga, and he talks about the military leadership lessons for public service. And having looked at what military leadership lessons could be learned in the public service, people who know how to solve problems and take a very structured approach to them. And this is what you see across military, whether you want to look at it in whatever context, in whatever country you're seeing. But there's a structured and orderly approach to how the military handles itself. And they're saying that these lessons then can be carried over through to public service, where unfortunately in most cases in the public service, it seems that there's no order. There's really a lackadaisical approach to doing things. You don't get the results that you would. So the point of order being brought into a service whereby things would not necessarily happen seems to be the overriding principle for all of this. That there's no order here, people kind of do what they want. You don't find that in the military. It's structured, it's ordered, people do what they are told to do. And you'll find that you have very little room for mistakes. You have very little room for a kind of blasé attitude to doing things, and that you will get things done the way they should be done. Under guard, under watch, under supervision and scrutiny. And I don't think it would hurt in many cases. And many people will say, it's that order that you're essentially looking for.
Are we saying that our public service is ailing?
Yes.
Basically, what you're saying is that the public service has lost order, has become what? What was that you're saying? Lackadaisical. That's how you use that word in a sentence.
Yes.
Well, say it again. I don't even.
Lackadaisical. Okay. Today's that day.
Today is one of those days, right? So, is that what you're saying? That our public service requires this kind of injection
In order, because how many times have we talked
of
about
military order?
how many
So it's out of order.
How many times? I mean, okay, but look at the specific areas in which, for example, active military officers have been brought in to do some work. Anybody could have been chosen to do this. Look at what was happening or what has been happening in Nairobi, for example, for the longest time. Many estates without water, garbage collection, absolute mess. The road network within the city, terrible. Not being able to get certain things done. And you have people who've been sitting at these positions for years on end. The collection of fees and things like that hasn't been put into proper use. Cartels running the city, and you have somebody who's sitting at the helm of leadership. So yeah, things have been in a mess. That's just the truth. In terms of order, people were just getting by.
But how many are these people? That we were talking about the military personnel. How many are they? And how many government departments do we have? How many parastatals do we have? How many officers do we have that someone can head? I think what we're dealing here with is something we are not accustomed to. Because the numbers aren't many. If you consider the number of either government departments, government parastatals, government agencies that exist that they could have headed, they're over 100?
Yep.
Yes. And the people who mentioned it, we forgot General Kibwana at the port.
Yep. Chair.
Yes. So all I'm saying is, if you look at the numbers, they are not actually many.
They're increasing. That's the point.
Yes. Even if they
It's
increased.
being invited, whereby it was not that. Just like Eric said, previously it was inactive members of the military or those who had retired. It almost was as if it was a token appointment. Since you're out of active service, let's give you something
A little thank
to
you.
do. All right?
But also keep
But
you,
in
yeah.
this case, and keep your wits about.
see
But in this case, it's active members of the military being brought in to
It
do a
becomes
job.
it becomes a discussion point because it appears what's being imputed here is something nefarious. Meaning, what are they
There's
thinking?
something
Where are
afoot.
they heading with this? Why are the military beginning to run the government? That seems to be the question that is not coming out clearly. There's rumblings and there are complaints and there's murmurs, but it seems to be, wait, what next? As you say correctly, they're increasing. Are we soon going to hear maybe there is a military person as the AG? Or for all you know, there may be a military person as the Chief Justice. Now, the truth of the matter is this. The president, let's start. He is the commander-in-chief, just so that we start from there. Okay? Now, if you work for the government, now I'm speaking purely as a layman, and I could be absolutely wrong. And if I am, I will happily invite correction. If you work for the government of Kenya in whatever capacity, don't the military also have that little interesting clause which says that you can be deployed to be of service to the country in any capacity as and when that service is needed?
Of course.
So
That is why you see
we are seeing the as and when.
the as and when now.
Yes.
But then there's always that clear, not very clear, but it's grey, but it's right there. There's a line that divides the military from the civil, right? And we know if the military takes over the civil, that's what it's called, like what's happening in Mali. The military now starts coming to run public affairs. There's an issue like, come on, no. We have gone against the dictates of democracy, all right? If the military starts coming to operate in some of these, you start questioning, are they operating, like when the military is deployed, people usually say, now you first of all impose martial law, you've suspended the constitution, you've brought in the military, and what they're supposed to do is restore order. After that, then now you can go back into your constitution things.
That's where it gets tricky because this issue of them leaving,
When the military leaves the barracks like this.
getting them back to the barracks becomes a bit of an issue. What often happens is they become civilians.
Yep.
So they have the civilian cloak, but they're still military.
They are.
Yes.
So there, you answered your question.
That was not my purpose. I was not intending to, answer my
your
own
own
question. I was trying to contribute to what you're saying.
And then you landed right where you had
So
started.
this thing of answering one's own question is not a good thing.
No.
Especially on Friday. Not good. Not good. Not good. Not good. Not good. Not good.
Where does it lead us to? Right now, we are seeing a Major General Badi took an oath of office of secrecy, so that he can be attending cabinet meetings. Of course, this matter has been taken to court, and there are people who are arguing, no, including Alice Wahome, the MP for Kandara, saying, look, not followed procedure of appointment into cabinet. That's her issue. Is not that the person is a military officer. Her issue is just the procedure of joining cabinet. But we are seeing a military officer, serving military officer, being invited to sit in
We
cabinet.
have civilians who work in the military.
Yes.
Now, they
Yes.
are not in command, they are not in everyday life, but they exist.
They work for the Ministry
Yes,
of
there's
Defense.
Yes, they do. They do. They work for the military. So, what is it then? Are we complaining about people whose background and whose offices still in the military having positions of authority in civilian life? Is that what we're complaining about?
Is there a complaint or really? Is it?
Oh, there's a complaint, all right.
Hold on. Is there a complaint specifically that these individuals are then being brought in to bring about some kind of order, or is the complaint that they are being brought in to really then run the affairs of the state?
But how do you create order if you don't run the affairs?
Exactly. So
So-
now, is the complaint really that an overarching figure is coming in, and not really that things and the operations of the country, for example, are going to be streamlined, but there's another kind of authority which individuals then are not comfortable with?
We have lived and we still live and we're going to continue living in a continent where the military's incursion into civilian life has not been a pleasant experience. It hasn't been at all. And we just need to look around and realize it is not a pleasant experience. So, whenever you see, and it's now an incursion, not even an invitation. It is an invitation, though. When you find active military personnel, remember, this has never been an issue of discussion before when retired military personnel were put in civilian life. It was considered.
Because they're inactive.
They're retired,
Yes.
so now they're civilian.
But the moment you have, because remember, those ranks that you have within the military, among the things it also indicates is the number of men under you. Eh? You hear the word platoon. Eh? A certain rank is in charge of a platoon.
Yep,
You hear, that's the end of my military terminology.
that's it.
Okay.
Yes, it's a
Platoon.
platoon.
We can stick with platoon.
Yes.
I can
Then
see
I
how
also know barracks. That is where they live. Okay. So if you consider,
And there's a call.
there's that one also. If you understand that these are people who actually have groups and numbers of men, and the higher up they are, the
more the
more
people.
the number of people who actually report to them, and whose lives they are actually literally in charge of. That is the fear that people may not articulate clearly, but they say, but this is a person who has actually people serving under him. Forget this job they've been given. If he's active in the military, there are people who still answer to this person.
Yep.
Now, with our experience with military incursion into civilian life, that is not something people want to fathom. It's not. It gives
It's
people.
not comfortable.
Yes, the Hebe something you mentioned earlier.
GBs.
That one. Yes, it doesn't sit well, and people are asking, why is it coming now, and we have an election not too far away? See, so conspiracy theories have reached the conspiracy theory heaven. This one, man, can be debated until they even change the entire kaleidoscope of colors, because what if, perhaps, might be, then military. And if Mali hadn't happened just as recently as it had, maybe not, but we're seeing what's happening in Mali. We're seeing what's happening in South Sudan. We're seeing what's happening in Ethiopia.
But this is not new in Uganda. They're used to this. They're used to serving military officers actually taking up some portfolio in government.
No, that's not an issue.
It's not an issue for them.
No, it's not an issue. It's not an issue at all. In fact, a good number of people, no, that's for them, it's not an issue. It's
Just across
us.
the border.
It's new to us.
Yeah.
So the novelty of it isn't sitting well. The implications, now, those ones are standing. They're not sitting at all.
When Mohammed Hussein Ali was appointed to be the commissioner of police those days, the general vibe was, all right, so now we have a military man who's coming to to streamline the operations of the police. He's going to ensure that now the police become a service and not just what it has been. He's going to do. There was positive response to this and reaction to this. Saying, okay, we are used to these guys just being the same. Now here we are. We have a military officer. And the first press conference that Mohammed Hussein Ali held, and he's just in that office, and very soft-spoken. And even the reporters who were there, we had sent reporters that were covering him, were asking, so why didn't you ask this question? That guy gives you an eye. You can't ask any question. There's that feeling that the country has about the aura of a uniformed military officer. Because when he took over, he did not come to office wearing a police officer's uniform. He first came with his brigadier regalia.
Yes.
Wait. And he was just speaking there and saying, yeah.
But even from your reaction, for example, if you walked into an office and you saw a man in full military regalia and you saw somebody in a suit and a tie, who do you think you're going to pay more attention to when they speak? Exactly. So I think it's really something about the order and the values that the military holds that you would then give some kind of respect to or give some kind of attention to. But look at the areas in which there seems to have been a mess, whereby we have active military officers then being given those positions right now to rule and lead. In Nairobi, again, I said, look at the mess that was. Look at Kenya Meat Commission, for example, and the output that it should have been giving over the years, and then the mess that has been there, and then saying, what is it that is needed? It needs some kind of order. It needs some kind of streamlining of operations. And those are things that resonate with somebody who's been in the military. Mm-hmm. It's very hard for me to picture in my mind that you would, for some reason, walk into a barracks and that you see things operating in any which way. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. People are in order. People know what they're supposed to be doing, and it is done. You fall out of line, you're sanctioned for it. You listen and you do what it is that you're supposed to do. And I believe that those are the core values that are then being lifted from that service into this other one. I can understand the fear and the uncomfortability that comes along with saying, okay, hold on a minute. Are we going into a military state when we see some of these operations then being given to military officers? That fear is not...
unfounded.
It's not unfounded. It's not without merit, for sure. But at the same time, looking at the other side, then you can say, all right, there's then some value in having some kind of order here. There is value. Because hitherto, it's been an absolute mess.
The Major General Ali, remember upon his appointment, we had one serious menace in this country. It was called Mungiki. By the time that man left office... that menace was something else, but it definitely wasn't a menace anymore. So when you talk about there being order and the thinking, you see, remember the military take in people when they are youthful and they mold you and shape you. So that becomes just your normal way of life.
Yeah.
It's not something
It's
going to go away. Okay? Now, when you consider that, the point you're making becomes extremely valid. But let's not run away from the reality of the fears, the politics, more importantly, our politicians and their decision-making process, and the love that our politicians have for doing things that benefit them. Again, this isn't perhaps spoken of loudly enough, but the question they're asking is, what is the president working on?
Does he have some plans when you make... Okay,
yes.
Okay, sure. Because then you can say it looks as if the areas that these active military officers are being given to rule over, quote unquote, are softer areas. Kenya Meat Commission, all right. Not so bad. Things were not looking too good in Nairobi. Okay, come and streamline here. As a segue to come in and later then say, okay, since this worked, in fact, here, and here, let's have that. I can see that fear. Anybody who can't maybe would be myopic. I can see that fear to say, okay, maybe he started this way and it would then graduate into something that would be out of our control, pun intended. But it could be on the other side as well.
Remember, the meal that is cooked has no master, right? When, for the last 7 years, you, as a president, have headed a government that has very steadily, very methodically, and very surely lost the trust of the people you govern over, don't expect that even the best of intentions, the best of motives, the best of actions will only be seen in one. It will be seen in many, many lights, and usually the negative light will take precedence. Chickens coming home to roost, that's what happens. The purpose may be excellent, the intentions may be good, and the outcomes may even be better than we anticipate. But for now, because of the mistrust that is being carried over from one sphere of government, right off the blocks from COVID, KEMSA, and the list goes on. And then this, it will not be treated as though it is something that is positive. In fact, the mind goes immediately to the worst case scenario model. Immediately. That's what people think of.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, look, and because we've heard of stories where you have rogue military officers doing whatever they want to do, unfortunately, those are still in the minority. The majority...
And in fact, Kenya does not have that history.
No,
at
we
all.
don't.
At all.
We don't.
The majority of military operations are actually ones that are led with order. I come from a country whereby, for the longest time, the country was ruled by the military. We had one president who would be seen as a rogue military officer until they had to do away with him. However you just look at it, that's what happened. But Abacha had gotten to the point whereby nobody could question whatever it is that he said. And he came with that baton of, I am one, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. I am the general. I am God, and everybody else who comes along with him. There he had gone off. But coming from that point of order and such, it was possible then for him to basically rule the country as he wanted. Then came Obasanjo, who ruled in the military regime and then became the first democratic president after having ruled as a military president. Guess what? Till today, people still listen to what Obasanjo says, and he's no longer in government. What am I saying? He's been able to carry those values of order, of respect, through to a democratic government. Even outside of leadership in the country, people still view him as a leader in the country and on the continent.
Time for us to take a break at 27 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home for this hour. We are looking at the merits and demerits of having military officers, serving military officers, or even recently retired military officers taking up senior positions in the civil service, in the public service. Is that of any merit to the delivery of services by the government? We'd love to know what you think as well. 0719 012 600. We may take your calls after this break. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Nairobi skies are mostly cloudy
The
this morning.
weather
16
with
degrees,
Spice
we'll go to a
FM.
high of 23 and lows of 13. There is a chance of rain, Eric. Today it will rain. Njeri, 15 degrees and cloudy at highs of 21 today and lows of 13, and a chance of rains as well. It looks like through the western part of the country it's going to experience rains today. 21 degrees the high and a chance of thunderstorms in Nakuru. Eldoret the same. Currently at 14 and mostly cloudy. It'll go to a high of 19. 20 degrees and mostly sunny in Kisumu. Thunderstorms in the forecast with highs of 26 and lows of 19. They're also in the forecast in Kakamega, going to highs of 22 and lows of 15. Eastern and the coast, Mombasa, 24 degrees and mostly sunny at the moment. It'll change later, going to highs of 28 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Kampala's partly cloudy at 18 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 24. And in Dar es Salaam, it's a warm day today, highs of 30 and lows of 23, partly cloudy conditions. Joburg is rising in temperature, 13 degrees now, and mostly sunny conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 13. And Lagos is partly cloudy at 30 degrees, rise to highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, in and outbound on Thika Road today, we said we're going to do a spot check on what's going on there. 2 accidents already. It seems like after yesterday, we thought that was going to be enough, but apparently not. 2 accidents on both sides of the highway, in and outbound. So as you're approaching, whether you're leaving the city or coming into the city, please be careful, guys. Approach with caution because they're still trying to sort that out. The traffic on Mombasa Road is being described as epic, as I like to say. Jam, 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 and no butter. Can't move. All stops, again, looking at Thika Road, heading to town. Use the highway at the service lane right at all stops. Use that to be able to get off of Thika Road as quickly as you can. Be careful, guys. It's being called a death trap today. 2 deaths on Thika Road, 1 on Mombasa Road yesterday. So please be extremely careful. Okay, we'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. Let us know also what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
7 going to 8. A conversation continues right here in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM and KTN Home. Military officers serving and former military officers who are now serving in the civil service. Quite a number. ESCC CEO Major Twalib Mbarak is one of them. After serving more than 30 years in the military, he went also to serve in the National Intelligence Service. Now he's at ESCC. We talked about even the head of the Kenya Bureau of Standards. We've talked about very many others. Serving military officer Major General Badi in Nairobi Metropolitan Service. And then we also have people like Colonel Cyrus Oguna, who is a military spokesman, came straight from the military, taken to government as a spokesman. He was the military spokesman, you know. And then now we have the Ministry of Defense actually taking over the operations from the Ministry of Agriculture of managing the Kenya Meat Commission.
You know, this Kenya Meat Commission, remember, if there's a story of continuous failure, it is that particular institution. Right from inception during colonial times, it had a spurt of some success, brief. But the stories around it, somehow the planning, the entire organization of it, the structure, something wasn't quite right. When I say something wasn't quite right, it means something in terms of how it was supposed to function, then the people who've run it, okay? For a long time, it was a very, very big name, and it represented a lot of exporting of beef primarily, that this country did, and was known for it. But beyond that, even when it was, remember, it was revived after it had died, buried, okay, resurrected, still. Now, a country that loves meat like this one.
A country where more than half of its landmass is actually used to produce meat.
And for a very good reason. Is it the same story of how it is our resources are mismanaged? Is it? But at the end of the day, if it isn't working, and the president has seen it fit to employ certain cadre, certain caliber of individuals from within the human resource we have in the country to run it, I personally see nothing wrong.
I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, the thing is it possible then to divorce the mind from the conspiracy for a moment and say, looking at something like this, whereby, as you say, it has been in a shambles for years, then removing yourself from the whole conspiracy and the fear and everything, is it not something that could be embraced as something that could actually work? Whereby you see some kind of order. Look at what military if you could just look at some of the attributes of what they're able to do within the military. They're able to operate and live within a shoestring budget. So what does that mean? Financial management at the tip top of what they're able to do. In terms of order of operation, timing, making sure that something is done. If it's 4:30, it's 4:30. It's not 4:31 neither, is it 4:39? It's 4:29. Right on the money. It's done at the time that it's supposed to be done. Within the guidelines for which things have been drawn up, that is how they operate. So then would it be so wrong again, aside from the conspiracy, would it be so wrong to say then, for things that have previously failed, why not give it to people who have been tested and tried in operations that deal with the very security and heart of a nation, to then be able to then lend this kind of skill to operations that have previously failed?
All those
In my
beautiful
opinion,
attributes
there's
that you've
nothing-
said,
There's
Nduh,
nothing wrong with it, if you ask
You
me.
know,
those beautiful
me
attributes,
personally,
do we have evidence that our military is actually living like that? For example, we know when it comes to budget, the military's budget is something that is opaque. You do not discuss the military's budget. So do we know whether they're actually able to manage their budget well? Do we know for a fact?
no, we
whether-
know for a fact that they've had scandals.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean,
There
we
you
know
go.
that there have been scandals when it comes to things like that. The details of it you don't know. But I'm saying the principle.
When it comes to those things of saying, they run things like clockwork and all, have we tested them? Do we know whether for a fact they are able to operate like that?
Well, here's a test. This is a test. with
So
what
is
we're
this
seeing
is this
right
is
now.
this what we want to do? We want
Actually-
to test them with our lives now.
Well, that's
there
what's being done.
with the civil service.
It's what's being done right now.
Because it appears like this is what we're thinking. This is what military does. We just look at them from afar and we assume just because they wear a uniform.
We don't
Because-
engage with them in our everyday life. So
Yep.
we can't honestly say we really know how they function. Now, by the time a scandal that relates to an institution that essentially has activities that are hush-hush, when it comes to the public, that thing must be bad. And it isn't one, and it isn't two. What I feel, much as I said that this really, I don't see a problem with it. Where there may be a problem, they're Kenyans.
oh wow, okay.
Not the positive aspect of it, the negative aspect of being Kenyan. What is to stop them from shedding this wonderful image that you've painted and which I really like, and simply being like every other Kenyan entrepreneur? What stops them?
If you talk about now the operations like that, for instance, you would expect that there would be, openness and what? Transparency in everything in all the operations. So, for instance, the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, in all these things that it's doing, you expect that there's going to be transparency. Nothing should come out. Questions should not arise because we have this very good, noble military officer who's running this organization. Then things should be smooth, right? So what we're saying is that we don't expect, for example, to hear any scandal about procurement or the things that the Nairobi Metropolitan Service is now doing in terms of building new hospitals, building the roads or sinking boreholes. Is there any issue about procurement? I'm not saying I know any. I haven't heard of any. But I'm saying that we are saying, because this is what we are used to, we should not expect to hear scandals surrounding procurement, scandals surrounding single sourcing of procurement in the Nairobi Metropolitan Service.
What Nduh is suggesting, that would work perfectly if the entire population of personnel in Kenya Meat were military. Entire.
Okay?
People
It
who
might.
No, I'm just explaining. People who understand orders, they understand this, and they also understand how to keep quiet if something is wrong, and they will not speak out of turn. But so long as you are the head, and the people who work with you, for instance,
And the
look
same
at-
civilians.
same civilians, you're going to have problems. You will run against headwinds on day one.
And we will blame that head.
And yet, the head should not be blamed.
And you see now the problem here is once we start blaming the heads, we'll now start taking it back to the military. If, for instance, Major General Badi, something goes wrong or there's a major scandal that emanates out of the Nairobi Metropolitan Service,
Badi.
we will go back to Badi and military. Look what military did. Our military is corrupt. If there was an allegation against Badi, it takes it back. And what you're saying is, if, for example, the general is able to run and give commands just like he would in the barracks. I'm the general, and I said, this is what is happening.
this is what you're going
Everybody falls in line.
Yes.
Is that what we expect to see with the kawaida civil servants? What is it that we've seen in the civil service over many years? Umekuja, utatuacha hapa. That's what they tell appointees. That's what they tell the president's appointees, PS, CS. Ati CS anasema nini?
They even instruct you and tell you, here,
Agenda.
this is how things work.
This is
Here,
how we do things.
this is how things work. Yes.
I think also the same attitude does come from military officers as well. They also will tell you where I'm coming from.
This
This is how things work.
This is how.
Okay, so this is the way in which we are going to do it. And I kept going back to the example that we had of when the late President Moi was being buried. The same Kenyans that you're talking about, where you go to a place where you're asked to line up and people are milling about as if nothing happened. You saw Kenyans lining up in single file for 3 days. Nobody
Queue
was out
starting
of line.
at KICC,
Queues and all the way.
next to
Nobody
City
jumped
Hall.
the line. Nobody said, I'm going to come back, hold my spot. People lined up. Because?
Why don't we take this thing, since this story is building up nicely?
It's nice, eh?
Let's give it the entire flavor, okay? The full spectrum. Stadium being prepared for the ceremony in Nairobi.
By who?
It's begun with contractor given.
Yeah.
Contractor playing with his toes and fingers instead of actually doing what he's supposed to do. Okay? President visit says out.
NYS.
Military in. Hey! Man, that thing was spruced up quick, sharp.
Done,
It
dusted,
was
and
ready
we
by Tuesday.
move.
The president
Ready.
The president
Paint
drove
dry.
to Nyayo Stadium on Sunday afternoon, drove himself. The funeral was the following week. By Wednesday, it was finished, done, spit, dry.
Did you see the Kabarak funeral? The order in that place, gobstopping. Yani, you look, you
Isn't
say,
it?
this is really very good, isn't it?
The event starts at this time. It starts at this
It started at that time.
You finish at this time.
And
All
you're
this-
told you speak like this for this length of time. How can you speak like this for that length of time?
You come and you pay your final respects. Even the members of the family who came to say goodbye to their beloved, you throw your sand, you move. Because people are standing there, they're watching you. You move. Did you see anybody say, well, this is how we do things, even if it is a funeral of your father? It doesn't matter, my friend. Move.
What you're telling me then, it's not just the military, but it comes back also to the individual from the military who is put there.
Exactly.
It's a person.
It's the person. It is the person, for sure.
It's a person, and what the person decides that they want to do. There's a story that had been written about Major Twalib Mbarak, who's now the CEO at the EACC. Remember, this is a military officer, went into NIS, intelligence officer as well. When he talks about how he's going to, and we interviewed him here, and he said the same thing. I, as the CEO, I'm the head of this organization. I have got to lead and ensure that what we are doing is the right thing. All right? He says here, corruption fights back, but I have a skin of a rhino. I don't fear anybody, and I'm only committed to executing the duties of my office. If I don't deliver, my team will not. It all starts with me. If, as CEO, I wobble, my staff will do the same. This is the military thinking, even when we watch the movies. That's what the generals do.
Yep.
From the old days, from even the Roman times, a general knows that I've got to lead, and I'm at the forefront in leading my troops. If I wobble, the entire war is lost. So a general already knows this, that it is everybody is looking at me, and they are taking my cue, they're following my lead. So I know what I need to do. Now, then bring that and infuse it now into our public service. I know this is what we need to do, and I'm issuing my commands, and I'm saying this is what we do. And I expect you to follow my command. I expect that we are going to do this. I also expect that you will give me proper advice so that we can go ahead, and fight this war. Our public service, we have complained about our public service for many years. Our public service, truth be told, it delivers. All right? There are very many officers in public service
The vast
who
majority.
do their job
The
well.
vast majority do.
Vast majority. Then they're infiltrated by these other people who come in there and they feel, what is it? First, you cannot just wake up and unceremoniously fire me. There has to be procedure. You cannot just wake up and decide that you're going to transfer me. I'm going to report. We will have some cases heard
Getting
here and
sacked
there.
from government is hard.
Difficult. The president himself has said, I'd like to shake things up, but I just can't wake up and do things. Sends all procurement officers on mandatory leave so that you can see how to sort out the issue of procurement. Do we have corruption related to procurement now? Yes.
That corruption bounced back. It's as though they've taken time to revive
So if they just went home and they
back.
said,
and come back
2.0.
better and energized.
yeah, it's like they were just saying, Uhuru amesema twende siku ngapi?
Let's go.
Sawa tu, acha twende. Come back. So where were we? Right? So is this maybe the order that we need then to bring to the public service? And that's the question that we're asking this morning. Is bringing the military officers into public service going to infuse order and better delivery of service by the government? Is that the merit? What are the disadvantages of having military officers coming into this? Should we get more into other crucial spaces? We saw what Major Kihalangwa did with the migration when he was the director of immigration, streamlined. This is what happens with passports. This is what happens with you getting your ID, streamlining it. But is this what we need? Jury is still out.
Might be on.
0719-012-600. We'd love to know what you think of this. Is this what this public service, the civil service needs in order to better deliver service to the Wananchi? This order that comes from the military officers, this attention to detail that comes from the military officers, this commitment to deliver that comes from military officers, or at least what we expect that they do. Some comments also coming in. I'm seeing a case where these sensitive government agencies, KCC, KPA, KBC, being converted to military ownership. I mean, my thoughts that soon, if not already, Kenya is not, or it's turning to a military state. I'm also of the thought that the president is using the military for mischievous reason. That is what Jackton says on social media. Let's go to the phone lines. Muki calling in from Sondu. Good morning, Muki.
Good morning, Latiff.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And I'd just like to contribute towards the subject.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned General Ali.
Yep.
Yes. You do realize he was also appointed the Postmaster General.
Yes.
Yes, during his tenure, from my analysis, he was able to, keep that ship afloat,
Mm-hmm.
which is in stark contrast to whoever is at the helm right now, where we all are aware, it's in the public domain, about how the Postal Corporation of Kenya is actually in dire straits. Compared to Ali's tenure, it's quite a big difference.
So, Muki, do you then think the military, bringing military officers into some of these installations is the best thing to do?
As a case study, that is a big yes.
All right.
Using the PCK, yes.
Asante sana, Muki. Have a good day in Sondu.
Okay. All right, cheers.
Thank you.
0719-012-600 or Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. We are all in all these platforms. Also on KTN Home, on all the platforms as well. This is the question that we are asking this morning. Do you think bringing military officers, serving or retired, into some key government departments is the way to streamline our public service, is the way to ensure better service delivery from our government? This is what some people have been saying. Well, we've been lacking. Let's hear from Fred Chelimo, who's calling from Kilifi. Good morning, Fred.
Morning, sir.
How are you, Fred?
Fine.
Welcome to the Situation Room. Do you think the military is a solution?
Yeah, first of all, I don't agree with the argument that military people have got a problem or whatever. The thing is this, these are Kenyan citizens with unique skills.
Mm-hmm.
And these skills are there to be proven, whether they are working or not.
Mm-hmm.
I've had an experience working in the military for 20 years.
Okay.
And I've also retired. I've worked in the public service for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I have worked personally with Buddy during his career, and he's a very excellent officer who sticks to the rules.
All right.
So we have had so many military officers being in ambassadorial, chairman of departments, and they have done excellently well based on skills inculcated on them.
Okay.
And these skills are paid by the public service. I think we should be very thankful that we are actually recouping from the investments that the public has done.
Good.
And these investments are coming handy to serve the public in service delivery.
Thank you. Thank
The
you very
issue,
much,
whether
Fred.
you have a military background, whether you studied aeronautical science, whether you are what, it is that managerial ability to deliver that is important.
Okay. Asante sana. Let's hear from Sami Korir in Nandi. Good morning, Sami. Sami Korir.
Hello, hello.
Yes, Sami. Good morning. Welcome to the Situation Room. We are asking, do you think the military is a solution to streamlining public service?
Okay, I've been following up that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Working with
Sami?
it's not a solution at all,
Mm-hmm.
because the military kuna kitu inaitwa chain of command,
Yep.
which means that if you are in uniform, the military to streamline, una streamline wale watu kwa military peke yao.
Okay.
Not the civilians that are in that mid commission.
Mm-hmm.
Unless otherwise tuseme wale wafanyikazi watakuwa military, ndio command ya huyo tuseme kama badi sasa ndio ata streamline through that service or kuna vile command wa inaenda ukiwa mwanajeshi. Alafu the problem now is that corruption iko Kenya. Mm-hmm. So ukileta wanajeshi ufundishe mambo ya public funds wajue kwamba kumbe ukiwa kazi ya nje kuna pesa fulani ambayo zina chip in, kama tunaelewa this Kenya.
Yeah. Unaona kama
so
itaharibu military.
Itaharibu, alafu tena kutakuwa na kuzi baadaye. Atasema kama kumbe kuwa hata NMS peke yake kuna pesa fulani. What of nikikuwa president in future?
Chukua nchi yote. Thank you, Sami.
It will be better. So it is a kind of wakiwa in civilian wakati wame retire, it's good.
But not while in service.
Because they have civilian and have nini.
They have military experience. Thank you, Sami. Let's hear from Dr. Salim in Machakos. Good morning, Dr. Salim.
Good morning. Thank you very much. And I think this is a very important discussion. But for me, militarization of the civil service is not the solution. I think what is the solution is one first to be given that education that the common good is for all of us to do the good thing. Then, if people are not doing the right thing, what are the repercussions? I think this is what we need to do. We know military also is not doing very well in their own aspect. We know the issues of funds they are giving. We don't even understand how much. There's no accountability. So I think for me, it is vices. All of us, we should remove the vices and have virtues. That the common good is for all of us to do the good thing. If we are not doing that, repercussions.
Asante
Thank
sana.
you.
Asante sana, Dr. Salim. Yusuf in Marsabit.
Hello, morning.
Good morning, Yusuf.
Yeah, I wanted to contribute about the issue that is being debated.
Yes, good morning. How is Marsabit today?
It's cold.
Marsabit kuna baridi.
Kuna baridi mawingu.
Okay. Now, continue. What's your thought on what we are discussing?
Choosing military officers in public institutions has both pros and cons. If you look at the people who are working in the military, there is a specific kind of discipline that are being taught in the military. Maybe it can work in the public service or not.
Is that a pro or the con?
That's a pro.
What's the con?
The cons now, if it were me, the discipline that the military are given in the camp. You know, there was a time during the President Moi era when all the Form 4 leavers are taken to the NYS. And then after that, you join the service, the public service after that.
Yep.
There were some changes, as in this discipline is being entailed.
So you inculcate discipline?
Yeah, inculcate discipline. Discipline as in looking at the misuse of public funds.
Okay.
The discipline to your seniors and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Asante sana, Yusuf.
So, okay.
Have a good day in Marsabit. Let's cross over to Elgeyo Marakwet. Aaron, good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
wacha mimi nikilee swala la military taking
Yes.
over mid commission.
Unaonelea vipi wanajeshi wakiingilia kazi ya raia?
Wacha nikwambie ndugu hivi, kama kuna watu most corrupt in this country are the military.
Kwa nini?
Ukiona hata kupata kazi yao ni lazima uungane So mi sioni haja ya military kuchukua kama hii Nairobi. Sasa wameanza kuchukua Nairobi, hiyo itakuwa ni mbaya sana sana sana. Mimi nafikiri tu Rais Uhuru Kenyatta aondoe hao watu waende wakafanye kazi yao, waache hii kazi ya kama ni Kenya Meat Commission, hata nipatia ikue private, ikue kama private company, ikue isimamiwe na military.
Okay.
Watu mimi siamini kabisa, wataharibu hii nchi kabisa yote.
Sawa, asante sana kwa maoni yako Aaron. The Situation Room continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now coming up to 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us from 7 o'clock. You'll be streaming the graduation at the University of Nairobi, and we'd like to say big congratulations and hearty congratulations to all the graduates this morning. But before we go, I'd like to remind you that the county government of Nairobi is giving notice to all land rate defaulters that the governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, has approved a 100% waiver on outstanding interest and penalties for those who will pay within a 1-month window that's opened 15th of September and is due to close on the 15th of October. So take advantage of this window. The taxpayer clears in full the total principal, land rate, and pays 10% administrative cost based on the interest amount payable. Take advantage of this waiver, comply with your obligation. Just go to epayments.nairobi.go.ke. You can obtain the invoices or bills from the City Hall Cash Office. You can also go to the Makadara Cash Office or Times Tower Ground Floor Banking Hall. You get your bill or invoice and then you go to epayments.nairobi.go.ke. And also, when you go to those offices, they'll give you the account number for the accounts that you can basically just pay directly into. And these are cooperative bank account and the national bank account where you can go and pay for this. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here on Spice FM. In the next hour, we look at what we expect to hear from the president come Monday. Remember, on Monday, the president has said that he's going to be holding a major conference to review all the measures and the impact of all the measures in fighting COVID-19. And then he'll come out and give the decision on the way forward. What then should happen? Is it tightening of the rules? Is it loosening of some of the current restrictions? What's going to happen and what do you expect? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Our audience on KTN Home. See you again on Monday.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
So let's not
done right.
on social media.
All right, so Kennedy Andera says, shouldn't we be concerned about what happens when a different regime is in power and wants to take back these functions from the military? Lirango says, it is an admission of failure by the head of state that civilians cannot deliver. Not all military officers are smart outside uniform and the barracks. He goes on to say that even military and public service people answer to the president. He is responsible for everything. Even the military cannot work under their own orders. They will follow the president's orders. Benjamin Mwethia says, with all the mismanagement of resources and impunity behavior of some government officials and employees, and no improvement in most services regarding citizens, we need some discipline. In fact, military should head all departments in Kenya for corruption to cease.
Thank you very much for all your opinions and views. This conversation continues, of course, on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Wherever you're tuned in, we thank you very much for choosing Spice FM and always listening into the Situation Room every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Keep it right here. In the next hour, like I said, we start predicting or trying to think what should the president announce on Monday. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I love. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Hey guys,
Traffic.
as is normal on Friday, there's a lot of traffic outbound. Now we have a major problem on the Maimahiu Narok Road right at Satellite. That has been closed because a lorry decided that it was going to be going too fast and has run over a number of cattle. So there's cattle in the middle of the road. Vehicles are not moving in either direction, and this has tailed back quite a number of kilometers. So if you're headed in that direction, please understand that that road, Maimahiu Narok, has been closed because of this accident that has happened this morning. Mombasa Road, Kisiokimau, all the way to the Way Bridge at Mlolongo. The traffic in and outbound is bumper to bumper. Roadworks are happening on Limuru Road at the Wangari Maathai Road junction at the underpass. The tailback outbound is actually quite long, and this is in and outbound traffic. So we're looking at coming off of Thika Road, we're looking at Mombasa Road, we're looking at the outskirts of the city headed towards Narok. That road has been closed, and I know it's a major road for people who are leaving the city this morning for the weekend. So approach with caution, guys. It's quite a mess. Wherever you look, we can only sit through it, right? Spice FMKE on Twitter. If you find an alternate route, let us know and we'll share.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
All right,
the
it's
only
coming
way
up
to start
3
your day.
minutes after 8 o'clock, and we want to thank you for keeping it right here on Spice FM. So we know that the president said that he's going to be hosting a meeting with the, key people who have been in charge of managing and containing COVID-19 in the country. He's going to be getting all the feedback from the medical experts, the security experts, the economic experts, and everybody and all, even opinion leaders in the community. This, of course, will have to include religious leaders and all. And when they have this meeting, then they will review when we took the last steps that we took, what have we seen since? I remember that time when he said, according to WHO guidelines, when a country has got into a point where the infection rate is about 5% and it maintains at 5% for a while, then you can start thinking of easing some of the restrictions. This is what the president said. Now we have a curfew that begins at 9 and ends at 5. We still have an order not to sell alcohol in bars, in restaurants, in hotels, unless you are in a hotel and you are a resident in a hotel where you will be sold alcohol to your room and not in the bar of the hotel. We still have very many industries that have closed because of all this, because we still have restrictions on the number of people that you can host in an event, the number of events that you can have. All these are still in place. And the question now here is, should the president come in and announce a continuation of some of these measures, or should he say, all right, we can open? From where I stand, the only thing that he'd be opening is just saying bars can now reopen. Because everything else, churches, people can go to church as long as you observe physical distance.
Yeah.
And the limit to the number of people who can go to a church was also increased. Initially, it was about 100.
It was
now
100.
It was increased. So people can still go to church as long as now, and people are not longer complaining that they are not able to go to church and mosques and other places of worship. So that is already happening. Restrictions within counties or cross-county movement is happening. There's no restriction at all. You can move from Nairobi and cross as many counties as you want by the end of the day.
Yeah.
As long as you still maintain those measures. The measures that are in place now are observe physical distancing 1.5 meters. Make sure that you're wearing a mask while in public. Ensure that as much as possible you wash your hands with running water and soap. Or in the event that you don't have running water and soap, use an alcoholic-based hand sanitizer. Those ones are still the medical advice that is there, even from the World Health Organization. Even if you open up the economy, those are the conditions that you follow. Schools are the only ones that are closed now. Okay? So, should the president hold this meeting on Monday and they decide, let's open up some more, the some more would be bars and schools and allowing political rallies.
Political rallies already taking place now.
Officially now.
Or to do it officially.
And allowing sports events to take place with maybe people going into, with spectators, right? Those are the ones that now would be looking at easing the restrictions on them. Any impact that would have on COVID or on the economy?
Look, let's just... Okay, when we talk about official, I'm really wondering whether if it's now an official thing, save for the opening of schools, if it really make a difference in terms of what has been happening. We've talked for a while now that for the last couple of weeks, it seems as if, the attention has dropped. There's been heavy, quite serious relaxation on some of these measures. People are not really bothered. Look, it's not official, but restaurants are open. People are sitting... Just take a trip to Thika Road, for example. Take a trip via the Eastern Bypass, and you see people are operating as if COVID never made its entry into this country, right?
But is alcohol being sold?
I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if it were.
Chini ya maji.
Look, you are... think about it, huh? If you see alcohol being sold, yes, it is being sold, and people can go and drink it in their houses. Are you asking if people are drinking alcohol
in the premises?
In public places? The answer is yes. But we've had cases of individuals who have actually been arrested. We've had situations even when there was a complete lockdown. All these stories indicate clearly that yes, there's a lockdown, but people still wanted to carry on with their lives as they had before.
If we want to be honest with ourselves, the measures that were put in place were, I think, served a lot of eye service, unfortunately, and people just carried on doing whatever they wanted to do.
You see, there's this understanding that seems to have been lost, and that is the lockdown was not to punish. It was to slow down, if not effectively, as put a halt to the spread. Now, just that simple logic, if you apply it to the opening of schools, yes, people say children play at home, wherever they live, but these are smaller numbers, smaller groups. Now, you open up schools. Remember, anyone who has a small child will know that the beginning of every term, everyone in that household will have a cold.
They're going to come with the sniffles, that's for sure.
Because children go and collect a nice cocktail.
Then they mix it up amongst
themselves. They mix it up. And even you, the adult, when you get bombarded with it, man, you feel the effects completely. Now, the reality is, when you open up space, what you're doing is you are allowing the free flow of the virus to continue. That actually is the reality and the fear that must engulf our thinking.
All right. That reality, let's bring also to this other reality. Is it any different? Apart from the fact that learners are not going to school and coming back home in the evening, or learners are not going to school and staying in boarding schools, what is the difference? When you look at learners in a particular village, right, who have a school nearby, they are still meeting, they are still playing, they are meeting in marketplaces when they're sent by their parents to market, they are coming back home. The thing that a child would do by going to school in the morning and coming home in the evening is the same thing that the child is doing now. Only thing is that they are not going and spending a day with their fellow children and a teacher in a closed environment.
You are referring to schools that are probably day schools.
Yes.
Where it's the same locale. If you were to open up schools as has been suggested, it means there may be more movement than we are seeing now.
Yes.
Not me.
There will be movement.
Thank you. We may have movement.
Yeah.
Now, the moment this happens, then essentially what you've done is you've opened up space for the virus to do its thing in more ways than you had previously. Remember, it's limiting it. Even when you are sequestered in your own home, what you're doing is ensuring it doesn't spread.
Which is why you had that stay-at-home order in the first place.
Yes.
All right. So if you have children who are at home and they're playing within their locale, that's the thing. They're within close proximity to where they reside. People are not crisscrossing the country. This was one of the first sectors that was closed. I think it was the first, even before religious organizations. There was a reason why. Because you had children all over the country who are going to school. You have people who live in Nairobi and go to school in Kakamega, for example. You have people who live in Kisumu and go to school at the coast. So people had to go back home. If you want to extrapolate that to what is currently happening in the European countries, why did we see a surge? Look at the sole reason why you saw a surge in infections. This was because people had traveled for the summer months. There was movement from one region to another. And by virtue of that movement, you then had interactions between people who otherwise had been closer to their places of habituation. That is what was happening. When they moved, now you had the rising cases of infections, which is what we are saying is likely to happen in this case. Because then you now have people, even if it is day school city, you have people moving from their homes to school every day in one form of transport or another, and then mixing with other people who've all come from different places at the same time. You're likely to see it. We're not talking about something that has not been seen or some kind of new unidentified phenomenon. We have seen it happening. It's likely to happen. There has been no place on the globe that has opened, for example, for children to go back to school. Whether you want to look at Ghana, whether you want to look at Nigeria, and then leave the continent, whether you want to look into Europe and look at the UK, look at France, look at Spain.
Look at the Scandinavian countries.
Look at them. This is what happened. Because now when you have mass movement of people who had otherwise been sequestered, this is what is going to happen. Whether we want to accept it or not. Because if we say that, so what's the difference? The difference is that people were not moving. Children are playing, but guess what? They're playing around their home.
Let me ask this question. We have on this very, very show discussed this interesting phenomenon of the predicted peaks that were supposed to decimate people on this continent, which hasn't happened.
No. The closest we saw was South Africa.
Yes, but they've opened and shut on more than one occasion.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
Okay. They've completely stopped the buying of alcohol completely. They've opened it up a bit. So they seem to open and shut, open and shut, open and shut. Do we have a country in Africa that has opened up its economy and staggered it? So, they say, this is our plan.
Uganda.
We want to do this. Who else?
Kenya.
Well, okay.
Kenya, when did they announce this?
Kenya staggered reopening.
Explain.
So the first reopening was, remember, everything was, first of all, close schools, close places of worship, close. We have had staggered reopening. We have had reopening of, first of all, places of worship with restriction. We've had reopening of increasing the number of people who can meet with restrictions. We've had reopening of cross-county movement with restrictions. You see, there was staggered reopening. Even starting from the three coastal counties, which had initially public eateries
with the restrictions.
Yeah, with restrictions. So we've had that staggered reopening.
Yes, but is there a plan that we know and we can say this is what the government plans to do in the next 60 days?
No, there's no plan, and that's why. No, well, the plan. I think if we
maybe they have the plan,
if
but
we
they
actually
haven't told us.
If we were fair to the president, we would say every time he comes to speak, he says this is so that we observe. And within the next number of days, we are going to sit, review, and then see what next. Remember, that's what he had said? Before he said, let's reopen a bit more, he said, first of all, we have sat with the experts, and the experts have said, we need to put this, and the other in place. Within 30 days, we review, and then we have a meeting with the Council of Governors. We reopen. It's the same thing that he said, for example, even this week. When he pushed the decision to next week on Monday, it's because he was saying the plan is to review. Everything that we have so far, let's review the effect. and then decide on the next course of action. And he has always warned that should we see the numbers increasing, we will go back to a step back.
That I have
So
heard.
there's a plan.
That I have heard. No, the plan I'm speaking about is this. Right. This is what we've been doing. Going forward, come this month, this is what we plan to do. We are going to open schools. The plan is we've been told, let's start with the examination classes, right?
Let me give you an example of the plan that Uganda had. Let me just share that with you. Okay? So, there was the presidential address. They gave a couple of, actually, it was last week. Number one, schools would reopen on October 15th for the following: the candidate classes and finalists in tertiary colleges and finalists in universities. So already that was staggered, even within the education sector. Then the international airports and land borders would be open for tourists coming in and out, provided that they tested negative 72 hours before travel and before arrival in Uganda, and provided tour operators ensure that the tourists do not mix with Ugandans. All right, returning Ugandans who had negative PCR results would be allowed to go home. The Ministry of Health would only get their addresses for follow-up. Then restrictions on movement on border districts were then lifted. Curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. would be maintained, but for the borders, their movement must always end at 6 p.m. That stood. Places of worship would reopen with the following guidelines: individual prayers or confessions with priests or counseling with the necessary SOPs, prayer and fellowships whose numbers did not exceed 70 by, again, observing SOPs. Night prayers and trans nights were not allowed. The regular large gatherings of prayers and preachings on Sunday would be considered at a later stage, not even now, depending on how the disease would be evolving. But the rule of the number of 70 and not more would be used on Fridays and Sundays. There would be no Sunday school for teachers. Open air activities of sports would then reopen, provided that there were no spectators and no players. And they would have to be tested for COVID-19 72 hours prior to any sporting engagements. And the test would expire in 14 days. Sportsmen and women didn't have to wear masks because obviously it was restrictive to their breathing in their sport. Teams would be quarantined for the whole season of the competition should they want to go into these activities. Indoor sporting activities, including gyms, remained closed. Casinos, game centers, and cinemas remained closed. Bars remained closed. Hotels will continue operating following agreement with the Ministry of Health. Restaurants would continue to emphasize on takeaway services only. Indoor restaurant services would be minimized. Mobile markets, monthly cattle auction, and produce markets would remain closed. I mean, it goes on and on.
That sounds very much like Kenya, Nduh. To be fair, seriously, if you think about it, whenever we've had the president announcing, or even the Ministry of Health announcing some of these measures, they tighten the measures, or when they release the measures, they come up with such an announcement. For example, right now, we know that the Ministry of Sports has already come up with the SOPs and said, this is what will happen in sports. The only people who are now allowed to engage in sports are those that are doing individual sport, like runners and such, right? They are SOPs. Talking about the restaurants and all. And I think what CT is basically questioning is, do we have a plan like what we had in Ireland? Saying, okay, we are reopening in staggered phases from October 1st, and this is what we shall do on, November 1st, then we shall reopen this, and December 1st, we shall go into this.
The simple answer is no.
No, but also it's informed by the fact that maybe it's informed by the fact that even that Ireland, when they're saying we shall do incrementally, they it's just that they have put it down and said this is what we shall do. Come 30 days from now, we shall then move automatically into this. The Kenya government does not say we shall automatically go into this. It says we shall review, we shall announce at that point.
That's vague. This is the point I'm trying to make. Having a plan doesn't mean you can't change it. Having a plan doesn't mean you can't even say the very same thing the president keeps saying, that we will review. But when you have a plan and you state it, it gives a certain element of surety that you have a long-term thinking process about this thing. So we are not going to, don't wait anxiously for me to speak. This is the general plan I have. So I will come and simply either verify it, I will qualify it, I will push it forward, I will change it, but this is it. Between now and June, this is the plan that the government has now. I'm speaking as a layman, and I honestly do not know all the things that the president has to consider before he comes to speak. They may even have considered this and may have been advised by his advisor that the best way to do it is the way you are presenting it. But I am thinking when people are told about what is to be anticipated in the past, the future rather, past indeed, it quietens the mind. And you feel there's a sense of, okay, this thing has been planned for. Remember,
So it's for assuring the
it's
people.
for assurance, so you can say, okay, even when they're saying this, it's against this this backdrop. This is what had been planned, and this is the way forward. Remember, this issue of planning came to the fore when we're told that schools will open next month. People said, we had planned for January.
Because that's the word that we had received first. It was January.
Yes. So people had figured January, and remember what we kept hearing. We knew there was time, we could prepare, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. What is not said was, had they told us October, we would have planned differently.
Yeah.
So when you tell people this in advance, and there's a proviso of this could change, because given the nature of this disease, something can happen that we haven't seen. And when that happens, we will tell you.
That would enable them to plan differently as
Yes,
well.
but this is what we are planning to do, and this is what we hope to do. So understand, we've planned for this thing, we've thought it through, and this is what we want to do. That's what I'm saying.
And what is lacking in the announcements?
That isn't there. All those announcements deal with short-term solutions over a very short period of time, and it doesn't go beyond a month.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen in a month.
No, it doesn't mean you can't plan.
The planning is already there. It's just that it's not being announced as this is what's going to happen between now and December.
And I'm saying it should be announced.
So you want to be told on the
Yes.
30th. So, for example, on the 28th,
Month 1, this is what we're going to do. Month 2, this is what we're going to do. Up to December, this is what we plan to do.
we shall escalate and then we
Yes.
shall de-escalate.
But we'll still be giving you the monthly briefings on blah, blah.
And we'll still be
Yes.
testing.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not entirely certain I'm getting the what is
Look,
what
a
how
lot of-
how
our
disadvantaged
lives
we
are
because of
regulated
that.
by the sort of planning I'm talking about. We may not think so, but they are, because we're so used to it, we never consider it. For instance, this show, we know we start from 6 to 10. We know. We don't come to the show on Saturday and Sunday. We know. And it doesn't change throughout the year unless something else happened. That's the plan. We know it. Schools have 3 terms. Universities have 3 semesters. Now, every year, you have a syllabus. You know what you're going to come. You know well in advance. It's not as though they don't surprise you on the week. So this regulation is something that our lives as human beings are tuned to. That's why when someone doesn't have a job, man, they're out of sorts, because you're not sure when you wake up what you're going to do.
Right.
Because that regulatory prospects and aspect of your life has been
Disrupted.
interfered. Yes, exactly. It's been disrupted. Now, I am saying, if you want to create a sense of normalcy, then that's what you do. You explain and you talk and you go into the future and you tell people this is the plan, so they know this is the plan. Not for a month, 6 months. This is the plan. But we will change.
So, for example, now all of us would be knowing that the president said this. We knew, for example, with the irreducible minimums. In 30 days, these are the irreducible minimums. If you have X number of beds per county, if you have this and the other, then we shall reopen and allow people to leave Nairobi and go out.
Yes.
Right? Because then we shall be saying, okay, Nairobi, which is the epicenter, if we allow people to go shags, then they are going to the counties. There's a likelihood of the inspection spiking in the counties, but the counties will have been prepared. So we knew that within the 30 days.
Yes, we did.
Do you want to tell me that within those 30 days, people were actually sitting there looking at kaunti yetu wamesema vitanda ni ngapi? Oi, bado ni 10 huko tu. Haitafunguliwa. Do you think that is what was happening?
What I'm saying
In
is-
reality, yes, all that is good, but in reality, did it change anything? From the fact that time we had been told 30 days, irreducible minimums are these. And then after that, when it was reopened, we were not told, in the next 30 days, this is what I am going to consider in order to reopen.
And that's
Or
I'm
this is
saying.
what I expect
That's
to
what
do.
I'm saying ought to have been done, because
Would it have made a difference? That's my
it could have
question.
made a difference. Not would, could have. Why I'm saying it could have made a difference is this. Consider what the lockdown was about and how it was, the information of the lockdown was received. People didn't take it well. And they very many people, not the majority, just many people went about the business of trying to see how best they could avoid this. Okay? That was one. But it doesn't mean that very many other people were actually abiding by these rules. They were looking for ways of wearing masks. They're looking for ways of doing the other. When you don't have a long-term plan that someone can refer to, what you've done is you've allowed them to make their own plans. And when everybody makes their own plan, there'll be many, many, many plans which may conflict with the plan that you have and which you haven't told them. So when you now bring in that plan, you're now fighting the plans that they have made. As opposed to when you had the opportunity to tell them what to do because they didn't know what needed to be done and reined in the thoughts processes so that even if they're errant individuals, but you know what it is you're supposed to do and you know what to expect. If there are changes, you're informed. That's really all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, unfortunately, there have been vagaries when then it comes to then what people should expect. I mean, I think we talked about this for some time. And then you have things coming into play like, all right, if these are the irreducible minimums, and then we had people even fuddling on those irreducible minimums in the first place. And you don't know what was the case or the other. So people weren't focusing on those irreducible minimums, for example. People were waiting to hear what the announcement was, and then we go. However, people were making a decision on what was said. Just take the opening of schools, for example. How many times did the CS come out and say, I don't care about all these other things except for the lives of our children. We are not going to play with the lives of our children. We are going to, this is not even an education problem. This is a health problem. So guess what? People said, all right, January it is. And people sat. Then can you imagine the tailspin you throw them into now when suddenly things are changing? And that's what I'm saying. People focused on the end. All these other things you say in the middle is not what they were focusing on. At the end of the day, was there going to be a break to the cessation of movement within county? That's what they were looking for. You tell them that schools are going to open in January, that's where their attention stays on. If you had told them, just like CT is saying, that, look, I'm not going to give you a date. I'm telling you that let's look at how things change over time. Then people are going to sit back and say, all right, we're going to wait and see how things are going to change. But when you give them a date and then you come back and then you make a change on it, you're throwing people into confusion. And then when you say, don't make inferences based on what I've said, what on earth do you expect them to make inferences based on? Except for what you've said. Except for what you've said. People make the decisions based on what you've said. Then you come back and say, actually, don't make a decision based on what I've said. Just wait and see. Which one is it supposed to be?
So having said all that, is there a point of keeping some of these sectors still closed?
Well, I think there would be a point in keeping some of the sectors closed.
I'm living with the reality. I'm living with the reality that, yes, so bars are closed. People congregating and meeting in other places. What is the reason for closing bars? Is because you want to avoid people coming in and getting intoxicated and forgetting to observe all these other measures, removing their masks, coming into close contact with one another, and everything else. Is that happening without the bars opening?
Remember,
Is that not happening?
many bars, Eric, are restaurant and bar.
Yep.
Those are opened. You will
The
not.
bar within the restaurant is
Yes,
not open.
you will not. It's not open. You will not see alcohol displayed. You can't see it. But
Are people drinking?
I am going to bet the ring on my pinky finger, which you can't actually see, that those bars serve alcohol. They'll find ways around it. I was talking to friends of mine in the areas I worked in Nyanza, and they said, this is what they told me. To begin with, matatus are just as full as they used to be, and no one wears masks, just for starters.
Number one.
Okay,
Just,
number one.
yeah.
So I
Those-
asked,
those
what
measures,
about
they
drinks?
are-
don't
they
do-
obeyed
oh,
for one
people-
week.
oh, drink. People drink. I said, how do they drink? So they go to the same places, but everyone knows that tea is served in a flask, so the alcohol is put in a flask.
Yep.
People don't drink the alcohol with a glass; they drink with a cup
Of the cup.
that you normally use for drinking tea.
Yeah, man. Nice. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, people are drinking tea and soup
yes,
served in flasks
yes.
Okay.
So
and plastic cups.
the thing is this: there are things that people will do irrespective. Remember, they tried prohibition. In
So
the US.
then, that's
Yes.
what I'm asking. Should the president then not just reopen the bars? Because in a way,
I think he should.
people are
I think he
drinking.
should.
Allow them to do it.
And
And
that's
these
where-
are businesses that have
And
collapsed.
that's where the planning comes in. I was telling you, you open bars and say, folks, if you have this size of space in your establishment, the maximum number of people who can be allowed in at any given time is this. It's open. Now, we will say, oh, but people will flout it. Yes, they will. Yes, they may. But you have attempted to open it. it's worked with the restaurants. We have seen, try it with the bars.
And see what happens.
And yes, and say, look, Nani, you can't come in. The number, the quota that we given is full.
Now let's see what we can do with
Please
that
forgive
kind of
us. Look, there are restaurants that people queue and wait to be seated, and not at 2 minutes, 3 minutes, even an hour. You wait, and you know you're going to wait. So, what is to stop you from waiting?
From waiting, even now.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You've done it before anyway,
Yes.
right?
State the rules. Like in the UK, remember, Eric, there was like a roll call. You enter that bar, there's a list where you write your name and your details. So should there be an issue of infection, then where to find it?
There's no proper contact tracing.
Tracing stops being a problem. But something has to be tried out.
Let's take a break and take a look at traffic and the weather, and then we continue this conversation. We want to open up the phone lines for you to call in 0719-012-600. Should the president just reopen the economy? Should he have staggered reopening, like many have said? Just open up, first of all, bars and all, and then keep schools closed, or open everything. Let's operate the Tanzania way. Life moves on. 8:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, still overcast in
The
Nairobi.
weather.
It's 17 degrees, though, not so cold this morning. 24 the high and lows of 14, and a chance of rain later on in the day. Cloudy conditions in Njeri at 16 degrees, go to highs of 21 today, and a chance of showers later on. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, going to highs of 21. And in Eldoret, 18 degrees will be the high today. It's mostly cloudy, currently at 14. Mostly sunny conditions in Kisumu at 21, highs of 26 and lows of 19 with thunderstorms in the forecast. And it's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 18. It's going to be a wet weekend here as well. Today, the high will be 22. 26 degrees and mostly sunny in Mombasa. Highs of 28 and lows of 23, and a chance of rains not too far from now, as is in Malindi. It's partly cloudy at 26. It'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 24 today. Kampala is partly cloudy at 20. Highs of 24 and lows of 18 with a chance of thunderstorms later. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, going to highs of 30 and lows of 22. Joburg is mostly sunny at 14, highs of 28 and lows of 13. And in Lagos, it's partly cloudy at 30. And we'll see some rains later, from what we are told, going to highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Traffic.
Okay, guys, we're still seeing the clog up in some parts of the city. Mombasa Road is one of them. It's bumper to bumper in and outbound today, guys. And this is between Syokimau, even further on, Mlolongo, and all the way then to JKIA, past then Cabanas and heading towards General Motors. Hopefully that will open up in about half hour or so. We'll take a look at that. Thika Road is also a mess. If you're headed out of the city, headed in the Mai Mahiu Narok direction, know that at Satellite the road has been closed because there's been a mashup, literally, of a lorry and some cattle, and those cattle are still on the street, and that's being tried. They're trying to remove that, but that means that you can't use that route right now. So if you're planning on going out of the city, there's a problem there. Safari Park inbound on Thika Road is moving very slowly, bumper to bumper. We just need to take it easy this morning. I know it's Friday. I know people are heading out of the city, but please be careful. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. You find a clog up somewhere, let us know. We can spread the word, find an alternate route, or at least keep you company.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
26 minutes to 9. The conversation continues right here. So what do you expect the president to announce on Monday? What should the president announce on Monday? Steve Biko Onditi says staggered reopening in the education sector wouldn't work. I've been to a school with over 600 candidates, and with the KCSE spacing of 1 meter apart, the candidates occupied 25 classes, which was over 3/4 of all the classrooms. This means more teachers haphazard.
Chris Amolo says opening up of sectors, open up tertiary institutions, primary schools and secondary schools should be opened in January. That's the recommendation that is being given. Shirage Mwai says, there is no plan by the government. We have been on our own. By the way, these restrictions have violated left, right and center. We are already back to normal. The president should only fully open up the country and ask people to continue observing the MOH regulations like sanitizing and washing of hands. Open clubs, according to Marcus, and still close schools. Majority of parents are not prepared. Many lost their jobs and businesses have been closed. To protect the responsible and careful from irresponsible and don't cares, I guess, by never opening bars.
So should we just do, for example, we already have international flights are open and people are coming in, and the requirement for quarantine is go and quarantine at home. Okay, so borders, apart from the Tanzania border, which is still closed, and the Somali border is still closed, but in terms of people coming from
The Somali border is still closed. Closed from?
Kenya.
Okay.
Those two borders were closed because of COVID, remember?
Okay.
Yep. But now, in terms of...
So Kenyans can't leave and go to Somalia, and vice versa.
And vice versa.
Okay.
Borders closed. But you can fly from one country to the other. Once now flights were allowed, you can fly. It's just the crossing at the border points that was basically restricted. Now you can fly into TZ or out of TZ. Remember, there was a tiff of if you come from countries, some countries that have been blacklisted by Kenya, if you come from these countries and you arrive in the country, you must self-quarantine. And then there are some countries where it's okay, you can come and just observe social distancing. TZ was among the countries where you had to come and self-quarantine. Push back from TZ, now that was lifted. Come from TZ is okay, just arrive at JKIA and come to standard group.
Why you see me sniggering is because I'm looking at our borders and how they normally function. That restriction is just to assuage the conscience of the government. People just move up and down as they see
People
fit.
cross as they want
Oh,
to.
yes, they do. They do. But it's important for the restrictions to be in place because that's what the government can do.
So then, should we just reopen everything? Should we
No.
reopen all this?
No.
No.
Okay, let's say just keep the schools closed, then everything else. Just like people who were calling when you were talking about this, are you prepared? They were saying, open up the economy. Let us at least try and recover financially, and then open schools.
Eric, open it how? That argument I subscribe to, but open it how?
With
how?
the restrictions. Same way when you talk about, for example, opening up the restriction of movement from Nairobi and into Nairobi, it was with condition that you shall do all those things. Social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands. So if we just say open bars, social distance, wear a mask.
Not more than a certain number of people in an establishment
limit
at
the
once.
number of people.
You see
Right? Open sporting activities now fully, and say if you're going to have spectators, then limit the number of spectators. Or say you're not going to have spectators, but open the activities where they can be transmitted on TV. People can watch. All right? So open up some of these things. There are industries that have suffered because of the continued restriction. And the reality is, everything else is happening with the same people, only that they are not going to sit in a bar to drink. They are drinking at home. If you look at the way the political class is behaving, they are conducting political rallies. We are seeing a picture of the deputy president when he was going to some part in Kajiado yesterday, and the people who just came out at Bisil to say hello to him, he did not tell them that you remove your masks, but they did not have masks. According to the picture, photo we're looking at here, the deputy president was going to a place called Maparasha in Kajiado. He spoke at Ilbisil. And at Ilbisil, the people here, they don't have masks. They are very close to one another. They are saying hello to their beloved deputy president. We have seen the same with the president himself. We have seen the same with the ODM leader. We've seen the same with the leader of ANC. We have seen the same with other politicians. So the issue of, restricting and telling people stay indoors, observe your distance, don't shake my hand. We've seen Raila going and shaking hands.
Eric, you know why these restrictions, for instance, in eateries or even now in pubs could work? There's somebody who owns that business. They would rather have the limited number of people coming to their establishment, and they would fight to ensure that they actually keep to those regulations. It's not the people keeping regulations.
It is the owner.
The owner keeping regulations, because if you don't, they'll shut you down completely.
They know
Yes,
the impact,
exactly.
the repercussions.
So there will be some order. It's in that respect. Now, one would argue, the Matatus don't do it, but when have the Matatus actually ever followed any order? They know the number of people who should board the vehicles, but is that ever followed? The answer is, of course, a resounding no.
The people who board know the number of people.
They also do. The point I'm making here is they must be restricted. That's the point I'm trying to make. You restrict them. Over a period of time, they will understand the restriction. It doesn't come easy. People are used to, there used to be some Matatus that used to live thick and come Nairobi directly. Those seats, you'd sit 5 people. It was genuinely express. But when you reach your destination, Chief,
you have to reorganize your bones.
the first 10 minutes, you are just letting circulation go to where it's going to go. And that is, I was a young person then. And the Matatu didn't always have young people. But someone gets out of the Matatu, you stagger. Because you are so tightly fitted that the circulation actually stops. That's when I understood the term car square. That's what it meant. You lean forward, you lean back. You lean forward, now move a bit. Oddly, they literally move, space. So all I'm saying is this. If people could do that and they could fit 5 people in those seats, knee space, if you have a little height, a different problem. That same thinking can also be applied when it comes to limiting and saying, because there's a larger picture. You don't do that, you lose your business. So this is a period where you are not going to make the money you want to make, but you want to go broke. It's not a principle business people don't understand. They understand it very well.
They understand it very well.
Yes. So the opportunity must be presented.
As we sample this comments coming in on social media, we also are expecting you to call in 0719-012-600. Collins, as you had called in Polisana, you got disconnected. Please call back. Collins in Kitale, picking up all the other calls as they come in. Edwin Guinea, is it Guinea or Genie? Edwin, are you Genie or are you Guinea? We can't afford to use our dear kids as specimen. Open pubs and other sectors of the economy. Which other place in the world have you seen schools reopen successfully without having to shut again? Right?
True.
And Shuragamoi says, CT, you're spot on. Let's open, but with a plan that is very necessary. Let's deal with flaunting than walking in the dark.
Thank you. You know, the thing that sometimes is difficult, again, is to change. So when we talk about these regulations, what we're actually discussing here is how you're asking people to move from the norm of conformity, which they are used to something new. That's the battle. This moving to something new. The truth of the matter is, even if we had been told that schools are going to open in January and it stayed January, let December come and let January come and you'd have heard.
Still, stories would have been, we were not ready.
They would have. Because not everyone would have been prepared even with the time, because the job that would enable them to be prepared isn't there.
No source of income.
Yes, so there is no income.
Let's go to the phone lines. Brian in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, habari ya studio.
Hatujambo, hatujui wewe.
Mimi ni mzima, nashukuru. Nafurahi sana kuongea na nyinyi pale studio.
Asante.
Sasa maoni yangu ni hivi, Latiff, mbona tunafungua nchi sahi? Wajua pale nyuma Wizara ya Afya ilikuwa ikipima watu tuseme 6,000 kwa siku. Inapata watu wako na corona, wako watu tuseme 600-700 pale. Sasa hivi wamepunguza, wanapima 2,000 kwa siku. Watu 150 wanapatikana na corona. Alafu tunasema curve imeflatten. Tunataka kufungua nchi. We'll be lying to ourselves, Latiff.
Lakini wacha nikuulize.
Now
that we're talking about lying to ourselves,
yes,
have we not reopened in all ways apart from just the announcement by the president? Apart
We
from
have.
schools, niambie
Yes.
nini ambacho kimefungwa?
I think nchi imeshafunguliwa. Wakenya wajua government ilichezea Wakenya. Government imecheza na akili ya Wakenya. Then Wakenya wame give up, unaona?
Wakajifungulia.
Wakajifungulia by the way. Sasa hii ukienda kule tuseme pale Mtwapa Chuda usiku unakuta watu wako njiani saa 3 saa 4 hawana wasiwasi kabisa. So we lie to ourselves before. Tukifungulia saa hii mambo yatakuwa ni yale yale tu. Corona iko miongoni mwetu. Iko miongoni mwetu kabisa. Tukifungulia basi tutakuwa tujafanya kitu, itakuwa ni waste of time.
It's just a waste of time.
Tumefunga kutoka March alafu tunafungulia October.
Asante sana Brian.
Asante.
Emmanuel in Eldoret, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, City, and my sister there.
We are well, thank you.
Fine, thanks.
Yeah, I had a contribution to make to the reopening of the schools. I'm a teacher and I've been holding some remedial teaching just free of charge for kids in the neighborhood.
Yep.
And then last Sunday, I just decided to have a debate on how soon should the schools open, sooner or later. And I happened to, though I'm a high school teacher, I had some kids from primary school, and I just wanted to hear their take. And these were the responses. One of the kids told me, "Sir, our parents don't have jobs now; they are business people.
Yep.
When we open school, what should they use to pay school fees and all the other school requirements?" And they thought January would be okay, so that the parents have some time to make some money to pay for them their school requirements. And then the other kid was like, and this was class 4, and the other one was class 5. Like the class 4 said, "Sir, you see, right now I'm not even so sure if I'm COVID, if I have the infection or not, because we have not been tested. I want to go to school to infect my fellow students in case I'm positive. Neither do I want to be infected." All right?
Yep.
And they were like, January should be okay. Now, this coming from children. So I wonder, how are leaders taking us? If kids can really reason that way, how about the adults?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kweli.
Very interesting there.
Good insight. Man.
Yeah.
Good insight, Emmanuel. Asante sana for your call.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Have a good day.
Okay.
In Nairobi, Karen, Eric Odongo. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I think the president should just reopen the economy, as I said earlier. Because even if the president had reopened the economy, guys are just doing what the president alisema wasifanye, because we still find people in bars. At night, ukitoka, you still find the cars past 9.
Yep.
You still find people walking around that past night. I was told in my homeland, Kisumu, people don't even wear masks. Since they're saying that waliba money, then all of a sudden we flatten the curve. So you come to realize that hii corona ilikuwa kweli, because after pesa imepotea,
curve imeflatten,
imeenda chini. And then I had a friend in Tanzania who are chefs. Hatujasikia kuna epidemic in Tanzania yenye wamekufa na corona.
Yeah.
So we don't have even faith in our government.
Wow.
Yeah, because if corona.
So what should the president announce on Monday?
Whether the president announced that, whether the president reopened the economy or not, chini ya maji, economy is open.
Okay.
We just want to see the president.
We just want it to be official.
Yeah. We just want it to be official.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Paul in Sondu, good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I think the reopening, it's already reopened. It's only that it's not formal. Because from where I come from, matatus carry excess. Policemen are just there picking money, bars operate, business is normal.
This is in
Now, on
Zombie.
the issue of, everywhere around Kisumu, the whole of, I think, Nyanza region,
Yep.
people go about their businesses. Regardless of whatever sanctions are there, wearing masks, it's a total no nowadays.
So what should the president tell us on Monday?
On the issue of reopening of schools, it will be a challenge because my sister goes to a school that has a population of about 1,200. They share beds. The capacity of the classrooms, an average of 60, because some have up to 65. Now, when you want to reopen and keep social distance, where will the rest go?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not possible.
So
I
don't
think you should
reopen
just
schools.
reopen. No, you should just reopen because actually people go about their business as normal.
So just reopen schools. Let's live our lives.
Let's live our lives. There's no need of sanctioning everything.
All right, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Christian in Nairobi. Hello.
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Now, I think the president should reopen the economic side of things. So cut out the curfew. I don't know, just basically bars being opened. They should open that because people need to regain their economic status, right? But schools need to remain closed because not because even of COVID-19, but because of people's financial status. People's parents don't have money. The COVID-19 side of it isn't really an issue because, I mean, Tanzania has been open the whole time. And there's no serious epidemic going on there.
Right.
You could say they're covering it up, but, I mean, their social media is open and all that. We would know by now.
We would know, for sure.
Yeah, we would for sure know. So there's something about Corona that is not understood. I don't know what it is. I'm not one of the people who dismiss and say, oh, there's no Corona, it's fake or whatever. I'm sure it's there, but there's something not understood about it. And in the fullness of time, we will understand everything about it. It's just the same way when HIV and AIDS came out in the 80s. There were so many misconceptions. People thought this is a disease for certain people only, and and in the fullness of time, people came to understand what it really was.
Okay.
And there's something about COVID-19 that's not clearly understood. It isn't what we're being made to believe.
All right, Christian.
All right.
Thank you very much for your views. Collins in Kitale, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen and madam.
Good morning to you, Collins.
I think the president should just open up the country. You know, initially, I was even against this reopening of schools. But I have rethought, and I think the president should just open up the country. Because if you look at people who are in business like us, we are really suffering.
Yep.
Because most of those private schools were our main customers. Those of us who are in this maize business. So the president should just open up everything, but people should be made to understand that it is not a permit so that you can just live your life the way you want.
All right.
But the president should just open up everything.
Open up everything. Thank you, Collins.
Yes.
Vivian in Mombasa, hello.
Halo, habari zenu nyote?
Hatujambo.
Very good. Mimi ningeomba kufunguliwa economy na watoto wasirudi shule. Kwanza, my child is a candidate. And the fact that she was supposed to, Magoha had said they're going to repeat school really affected her. So taking her through, talking to her and letting her realize that repeating is not the end of the world, she's already embraced the idea. So we went on and we know we are opening school in January. She's in panic mode that we are opening school in October 15th. Every day I get back home, Mom, we are opening school. Mom, we are opening school.
Yeah.
When I exams in April, oh my goodness, we have to break in December. So already it's panic mode for them. They've had tuition, they've had online classes, but just getting back to school already is just
They're not
pushing them on
psychologically
the edge.
prepared.
Yes.
Okay.
Number two, as parents, guys have lost jobs. Guys are on half pay, including me. And our kids have gained weight just by sitting in the house. So apart from just paying school fees, we have to pay uniforms. And I'm sure private schools will be telling you to pay school fees upfront, being that we've not been receiving any funds.
Yep.
So where do we start from?
Right.
Aki, when the government just wakes up in the morning and decides, aya, October,
This is it.
seriously? Aki mnatumiza tu sana. Magoha, really? Yeah, I think they just open the economy, but January will be okay.
Asante.
Yeah, asante sana.
Thank you, Vivian.
Cheers, bye.
Dr. Kimoto in Malindi says less than 700 COVID-19 cases. Really, I mean, where is it? We've lost that. Show me again that. Yeah, less than 700. They should just reopen Jamani unless there are different types of COVID. Tanzania was never closed, and they're on general election campaign in full throttle.
Actually, Tanzania did close.
Yeah.
Yes, it isn't as though it was an open playing field. No, there were restrictions. But the uniqueness of the Tanzanian approach, they left the Mwananchi to make those safe decisions for themselves. Yeah, look and see and decide. This is the situation, this is what we have, but decide.
Hey. If you look at what's happening in Tanzania, you've seen the clips coming out of the election campaigns. Tundu Lissu, the opposition leader, who, of course, before this would have said, look at what the president is doing with the COVID and putting the lives of the people at risk. He's out there addressing campaign rallies.
Contributing to the risk factor.
Yeah,
Contributing
nicely.
to the risk factor. There's absolutely nothing about him saying, Kesho, I'm coming to address here and I only expect to talk to 50 people. He's saying, come ye, come one, come all. Let's meet. So in Tanzania, life is going on, and that's what many people are saying here. So look, in the case of TZ, maybe the herd immunity worked. In the case of Kenya, the reality on the ground, the situation on the ground is that people are living. They're not observing all these measures. People are living kawaida. The only thing is that some section of the economy has been closed, so people who would earn from these sectors are not earning from these sectors.
By the time you find Western nations, talking about Britain, talking about Spain, talking about, by the time they start putting in place not just restrictive measures, but punitive legal measures to ensure that some of these orders are obeyed. You hear of jail terms, you hear of arrests and all this. It means they have tried to do this, they've tried to open it, but see, this is what people must understand. It's not as though those people in the West are behaving differently from us. No, they're not.
It's not African nature.
No, it's human nature. They're behaving exactly like us. Now, the government knows it has a responsibility, and it can see if we don't put on these strict restrictions, my friend, we have a problem. And the problem will just get worse. It's not as though it's going to reduce.
Yep.
Yes.
It'll just get worse. Coming to the top of the hour, I'd like to remind you about this window that's open between the 15th of September to the 15th of October and the 15th of October for you to take advantage of the 100% waiver on penalties and interest for land rates defaulters. This is what would happen to you if you do not follow that. Land rates defaulters should be aware that failure to pay within the above period will attract legal consequences, including and not limited to compelling land rate defaulters to pay directly to the county government until the land rates and interest are fully paid, cancelling or withdrawing any license or permit granted to any business in the premises in which the land rate has not been paid, charges the property owner unpaid rates plus interest until the full amount is cleared, and if there's any rate defaulter with a pending case in court for recovery of rates arrears, they'll in addition be required to pay the legal costs incurred. So just avoid all those things, all right? Just pay. epayments.nairobi.go.ke. Take advantage. The window is open between 15th of September. It closes on the 15th of October. So you just have a couple of days. Kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Remember, KRA is now also the agent for revenue collection for Nairobi County Government. Just go to the City Hall Cash Office, Makadara Cash Office, and the Times Tower Ground Floor Banking Hall to get your bill or invoice from those offices, and then you can also ask them how you can pay. One of the ways to pay, epayments.nairobi.go.ke. Others is bank accounts, and they will give you the bank account details. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. That conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, guys, focus outside of Nairobi a little bit. If you're headed towards Maimahiu Narok at Satellite there, the traffic now has tailed back easily 10 kilometers now, unfortunately, and everybody keeps coming. So somehow we need to let people know that section of the road is not going to be usable now because the lorry rammed into a herd of cattle. Cattle still being removed from the road, so that has been closed off. You can't use that. And we know there's quite some outbound traffic also in Nakuru and leaving the town there as well. So if you're headed in that direction, that's what you're going to meet. Use an alternate route for now. Mombasa Road also still seeing inbound traffic right around the SGR, in and outbound traffic, and it has clogged up through to Mlolongo and then from Mlolongo through to the SGR. Thika Road is looking a little bit better. Road construction at Limuru Road Junction and Wangari Maathai Junction means that traffic has also tailed back at the underpass quite some. So still looking at traffic. The other parts of the city, not too bad, except what should be expected right about now. We want you to be careful. Arrive alive, as we say. You get stuck somewhere, let us know, or share an alternative. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
2.5 minutes after 9. The conversation continues right here. Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on Spice FM. So let's talk about the law. Very many aspects of the law. Very many laws and pieces of statute that run our lives. There are several pieces of law, of statute that have come in place. I mean, have been revised and reviewed in the recent past, and this come in terms of the relationship between two people who are recognized as lawfully wedded. When it comes to sharing of property, when it comes to succession, when it comes to, first of all, recognizing a marriage, very many pieces of legislation. And now
when it comes to responsibility of childcare.
Responsibility of childcare, exactly, and how to go about divorce in case you wanted to divorce or separation or termination of this union. How do you go about it? And then what happens to your offspring, and what happens to any wealth that you had accumulated together? All these things are discussed. Recently, now we are seeing case law coming out of the judiciary with regards to recognition and definition of marriage.
The definition for a lot of people has been that by virtue of the fact that you're living in a man's house, he's your husband, and that you are his wife, if we're speaking from a woman's point of view. From a man's point of view, that a woman is living in your house, not necessarily that she's your wife, but that she's a companion. Now, the courts have said that that does not guarantee that you are in a married relationship. Having a man's name, and I'm just going to go through the details of the story as we go into the discussion. So the Marriage Act recognizes traditional unions, but having a man's name on your identification card and living in his house are not guarantees that you are married. These are two verdicts handed down in separate cases. In the first matter, one woman was seeking a share of a man's estate in Muranga, while in the second case, a woman wanted money following the sale of a house in Ngong. The Ngong property case, the woman identified as NMM, claimed that she had met the man in 2009, but it was not until 2016 that they agreed that she would move into his house, while since he was based in the US. She told Justice Chacha Mwita that she was aware he had a wife in the US. NMM also said that although the man was not the biological father of her child, he was responsible for the minor's maintenance. The woman said she also gave the man, codenamed JM, 840,000 shillings to service a loan he had taken to build the contested house. According to her, they visited her parents and attended a relative's funeral. JM, she added, also gave her father 100,000 shillings and was present at his burial in 2017. These actions, she said, were proof of love and a customary marriage. NMM told the court that a dispute rose after the Kenya Railways acquired the property to construct the Standard Gauge Railway, and JM requested the money be deposited in his bank account in the US. She also complained that he wanted to sell a car she believed was for the family's use. Now, the man denied marrying NMM's brother and brother-in-law testified on her behalf, saying they recognized JM to be her husband by virtue of all of these things that had happened. Right? The court heard that JM also bought the property and other things ensued throughout. However, Justice Mwita noted that the house was built before she moved in. He found that she had failed to prove that she had contributed either directly or indirectly to the purchase or the development of the property. It is clear, according to him, that the court that the plaintiff made a faint attempt to get from the defendant what she was not entitled to. So, because there was no union recognized by a court,
the only other thing could have been a partnership where you contributed
business
to
association.
a business association.
Exactly. And are there articles to attest to such? Even that you have not been able to prove. So what is this saying? That essentially the thousands of agreements that people have in this country of living together and touting it as marriage, people might actually be lined up for a rude shock when it comes to any kind of claiming of property or claiming for responsibility of childcare or claiming for other things that come along with a marriage agreement. Because according to this, just because you're living in somebody's house and you guys are playing sleepover every night for the last 5 years does not guarantee you this support. Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is. Before, it has been that you live in this person's house for a period of time, then you say, this is my husband or this is my wife. According to the courts now, with this latest ruling that has been given from the Marriage Act, sorry, it does not mean that you are in a marriage relationship and does not afford you the other merits that recognized union would afford or accord in this case.
Hey. Okay. So, how does the law recognize marriage? According to the Marriage Act, marriage is the voluntary union of a man and a woman, whether in a monogamous or a polygamous union, and registered in accordance with this act. Parties to a marriage have equal rights and obligations at the time of marriage, during the marriage, and at the dissolution of the marriage. All marriages registered under this act have the same legal status. Now, I'm looking for where we are defining. Okay, here it is. A marriage may be registered under this act if it is celebrated A, in accordance with the rites of a Christian denomination. That is number one, church. B, as a civil marriage that is going to the AGs directly. C, in accordance with the customary rights relating to any of the communities in Kenya. traditional, right? And D, in accordance with the Hindu rites and ceremonies, and E, in accordance with Islamic law. So religious, Christian, Hindu, Islamic, or go to the civil route, or go to the traditional way. So, and then the traditional way is you have to look at that community. How does that community traditionally and customarily recognize marriage? The completeness of a marriage. So, for instance, one of those cases that you've just talked about, where there was a case and it was reported in the media, there was a case of a lady who went to court seeking to be recognized as the wife of the man who died. Man was about 70. He had several property that he had left behind, and she had lived with him during a couple of years towards the end of his life. During this time, the woman says that she had gotten married to him customarily, and that he had paid dowry to the tune of 30,000 shillings. And she brought her relatives to court to testify to this. One of the relatives brought to court is the mother to the woman, and the mother says, yeah, he came, he started the process, and in fact, the lady says that he even bought property for her and gave to the wife in terms of 2 pieces of land. The mother, however, comes and says, no, those were gifts that he had given to us. They are registered under the name of the lady and her mother. So the judge said, looking at this, you're claiming that your union should be recognized under the part that recognizes customary union. I do not see anywhere where, because these two are Kikuyu, I don't see anywhere where you have followed the Kikuyu customary union. One, there is a way of paying dowry, the Rurashio bit. And there's the point where customarily you are now legally recognized as lawfully wed.
That's what they call
And this is
Ngurario.
called Ngurario. Ngurario is the end, that is the marriage. If you've just done dowry and you've not gone to Ngurario, you're still not.
married.
You've
Okay.
not completely. So the judge was like, you haven't satisfied this criteria. So therefore, what I see in my observation, you lived in this man's house, you helped him, you were just his helper and not his wife. And therefore, coming to claim a share of his property, you have absolutely no right to do so. And it's the same case you're saying here. Coming to claim absolute share of property is moot before this court. So the issue here is about people understanding the law.
There you go. When it comes to this, because it has been the accepted practice that because you're living in somebody's house for a protracted period of time, that you can then essentially assume the position of spouse. It's not. And I think that quite a number of people are going to be very upset when they realize that, according to the state, according to the law, it's not recognized as a union. They just recognize you as two people living in the same house. There's no union there. There's nothing that you can claim according to the law. It just is that. Two people living in one house. Now, if this holds, there are very many things that will be toppled over. When you start to go look for spousal support, when you start going to look for child support, all right, by virtue of the fact that somebody fathered a child, there you could get support. But then to say that through spousal support, you can't get that because you essentially
You're
are
not a spouse.
And there are very many people who hold that belief that because you're living under the same roof that you are married, you're not. According to the law and what Justice Muita has said recently, this is not the case. Quite a number of people in for a rude shock.
Why is it that this issue of marriages never really rear their heads unless there's an issue of property being contested? Because that's when...
Because, you see, when property is not being contested, when the person has not passed on, or when they have not reached a point where they call irreconcilable differences, things are smooth. You, as a person who's assuming you're a spouse to this other person, you're enjoying the full benefits of everything that is there, right? Or at least you assume that you're enjoying the full benefits of all material, all property, everything in this that this person has. You have access to it, and you're enjoying to the fullness of how much you're allowed to enjoy. In some cases, it's 100%. In some cases, well, there are some things that you don't touch, but yeah, and you have access to this. But at that point, you're happy. Until you get to a point where you're unhappy and you're saying, you know what, I want to walk away. And at this point, and I want to walk away, I want to consider how much I've invested the time that I've invested in this relationship? Because I've invested a lot of time in a relationship. So then, does it mean that I go and start my life from square one while this person continues with their life from just where we've left, from where we've parted?
Essentially, that's what it would mean. Because if you're going to then call on state instruments or legal instruments to then help your case, there's nothing that they're going to be able to do for you. Because in this case, you have chosen to go the way that the law cannot help you. There will be nobody who will be able to help you because you've chosen to operate outside of what the law has set, of what the law has said. So you can't use those legal instruments to then come at somebody and say, even if you like, have been there for 20 years, been there for 30 years, it's not going to recognize that because then you've not done anything that according to the law you needed to do to then come in the future to be able to claim such. Regardless of how much time you've spent there, regardless of what you've invested, the law will not be able to help you because you've not gone according to those standards.
So the other question then would be, why are people living in such unions and yet there's no restriction, for example, absolutely zero restriction or minimum restriction to you going the civil route? Go and register your union in the civil route, go to the AGs, sign, get a marriage certificate, walk back home.
You see,
why then is it that people would not do that?
Before this particular act of 2014, I had never heard of the necessity of giving a 3 months notice in customary marriage to the registrar. I'd never heard of it. But now it is there. It's actually a fairly simple process if you think about it. You just give the notice and then you give an account of what happened, and then you have to have 2 adult witnesses that what is being stated actually happened.
Yep.
It's actually not even more complicated than that. Now, there are many people who don't know that these changes actually occurred in reality. We've got a new constitution. They know all this. But as far as they're concerned, if I've gone through certain processes, that key thing of giving the 3 months notice to the registrar doesn't feature.
Registering it, because it doesn't matter that you have actually just gone through this process.
No,
you
no.
must still register it.
There are details that you follow, but you must give the registrar that 3 months notice. It's a requirement. You see?
It must be recognized in law.
Yes, it must be recognized in law. It's the same thing as even with church weddings.
A church wedding, actually, the certificate that you sign.
That's it. That's the That is the
it's
marriage.
A legal document.
That's the marriage
from the AG's office.
That's the union. The other one is a religious ceremony.
The union is when you sign.
When you sign this, when you go behind to the vestry to sign.
Yeah.
That's when you actually get married.
Yeah.
The other one is it's a ceremony. Marriage is actually it's a legal process.
Yeah, it sounds very flowery and cakey, but it's actually a legal process.
It is a legal process.
Yeah.
And that's why getting into it follows procedures. Try getting out of it and see.
Not as easy.
Yes. The same story of processes will follow. It's just the reality. Now, as with other things, something as crucial and as important as marriage, you would assume that somebody would take the time to understand the wherewithal around it completely, be attuned to the laws that govern it, the options that our, my mind was thinking. There are other religions that are not mentioned. What if I claim to subscribe to one of those religions? I know they'll jump and say, customary.
Yeah.
Covered by customary.
Yep.
Yes. But I'm going somewhere with this. I'm saying that the law being what it is and the interpretation of it, what the justice has done, in my opinion, is they've offered clarity. I would like to see if such a matter may actually be appealed. Because it's an interpretation, remember?
Yep.
The law is written, but his interpretation is what ought to happen. Yes.
So because in this case, you can even go ahead and change your name, right? You take up the name. So you take up somebody's name just because you're living in the same house doesn't necessarily then mean that you then have access to all his property or whatever. This is his interpretation. And again, what I'm saying is that there are very many people who are living under this umbrella falsely then, because then you can't go and claim anything in the future. But I still am very interested in the answers to what Eric was asking, is that since it seems so easy, and there have been provisions that have been made by law, which seems a very easy or simple process to go ahead and then get the necessary regulation, why then are people not going for it?
Lack of awareness?
Because people don't know?
Actually, not even awareness, it's interest. Remember, when there are certain processes and activities that people have this general view they understand. Not that they understand what the law requires, they understand. Like, if you ask somebody about marriage, they know. They understand. And if you ask them, they understand because they're in love.
People actually understand that the day they got married is the day they moved in together. Honestly speaking, they think that they're married because they're living together.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
You know, I've been waiting. You know, you've been talking about living together. You know, I have not heard you reference men who go and live in women's houses.
Even them. But
Don't say that quickly and just dismiss it.
Okay, wait. It's interesting that you say that, CT, because look at it. When a woman will move into a man's house, she will tell people that they got married. A man will not go and say when he's living in a woman's house that he married this woman. No.
What will he say?
He's living in the woman's house. They're not husband and wife. He's not taking that responsibility of taking a wife. But this one has gotten a husband because you're living in his house.
So what are you discussing here? You're discussing the traditional mindset that we have about marriage, and how even as we evolve with it, we carry it into our everyday lives without ever truly examining it under the torch
of the law.
Yes.
But CT, traditional mindset did not have come with stays, did it?
Oh, no. Tradition did. That's where you stay, you are married. End of story.
But then there's a formalization of
There
it.
is. There
It
was
will
always
not be
formalization
recognized.
of it.
Customarily, there
You wouldn't
has
go-
to
yeah.
be
No,
some...
there was.
You wouldn't go to the farm in the morning and you come back with a harvest and a wife, and that was it.
No.
Let's take a break. Let's take a look at the weather and then continue this conversation. Good morning, 20 minutes after 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life.
All right, Nairobi still overcast. It's warming up, though, however, at 18 degrees currently. Highs of 23 and a chance of rain later. Cloudy conditions in Njeri at 17. Highs of 21 and lows of 14. Going west, it looks like it's going to be a wet day throughout the country. 21 degrees will be the high in Nakuru, where it's currently mostly cloudy at 17. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 15 degrees, going to highs of 19 and lows of 12. We'll take a look then into Kisumu, where it's mostly cloudy at 22, going to highs of 26. And in Kakamega, 19 degrees and partly cloudy, going to highs of 22. Mombasa is mostly sunny at 27 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23. A chance of rain in Malindi this afternoon as well, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Let's take a look then into Kampala, where thunderstorms are in the forecast for later with highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, 27 degrees and partly cloudy at the moment, rising to a high of 29 and lows of 22. It's mostly sunny in Joburg, now at 16 degrees, rising to a high of 28 today, and mostly sunny conditions. In Lagos, currently, it is 30 degrees. It'll stay at that high today. Won't get much hotter than that. Will come down to a low of 24. Let's take a look at Beijing, where the day is almost ending. It's still mostly sunny at 25, highs of 26 and lows of 13. In London, it's partly cloudy and light rain showers in most parts of the city. 9 degrees, going to highs of 14 and coming down to lows of 7. Paris is cloudy at 11. Will rise to highs of 13 with rain showers later. And New York now entering into the weekend on Friday morning. Clear skies at 18. Will rise to highs of 27 and lows of 17.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, so the conversation continues.
Morning.
The question that we're asking is then why is it that very many people are living in unions that are not legally recognized? Is it for lack of awareness? And CT, you're saying for lack of interest. Interest in what? Interest in formalizing.
As far as
it.
they're concerned, they are formal. You see, the issue of this legality only comes in when there's a disagreement or for whatever reason. And then suddenly this lovely association that you knew was one thing, you're suddenly told is not quite what you thought it was. So starting from there, How do people get into it? Because in their mind, they believe they understand what marriage is. The law doesn't come into the discussion. They understand. If I do A, B, C, D, most men will talk about having a wife and what they have is a girlfriend they live with. Most women will talk of a husband when actually it's a boyfriend they're living with. But in their mind, that constitutes a marriage. Yes, living with someone. Now, bring in the law. Why is it that the law doesn't feature? Ask yourself the simple question. When does aspects of the law actually concern Kenyans? It concerns you, one, when a child is born and you're told that you need a birth certificate. Someone passes away, you need a death certificate. You are arrested by the police or stopped by police because if you are driving a car, your driving license is expired. If you are traveling, you are someone who needs a passport. There are specific times when you need a certain legal instrument to do certain things. But beyond that, everyday life,
you live despite.
we don't actually confront or come into contact with the law.
Yeah.
So it isn't foremost in our thinking. Not at all. And in something that people take for granted as marriage, it is the last thing that features. So long as they have an idea that they've gone and visited the parents. They've given the parents some money.
Your
They've-
people know my people. That's enough.
Yes, they've gone for a funeral and where you've met and you've gone with your people to that funeral. So people have met. That's how people see it. It's only when now the formalization in each community is called for and say, no, what we now like to see is for you to formalize it doing A, B, C, D. See?
Do you know
And,
that-
and even when they do that, you will find that this aspect of the notice that I mentioned may not feature unless they're told, you actually need to do this for this to be actually recognized by the law.
The number of cases that I hear, not just in Kenya, but in other parts of the world, is that even in death, then, and the refusal by communities to bury someone by virtue of the fact that they did not recognize that individual as the spouse of this person, not just recognized, but because as far as they're concerned, no union took place. We didn't see anything. So even to bury you, we won't. Do you know how in the last month, the number of cases that I've heard where there has been refusal to bury somebody based on the fact that they were not recognized? Then and then other cases where people bring in a child and somebody has decided that, okay, I don't want to be part of this relationship anymore. And their children and somebody is asking for responsibility of childcare, or whereby somebody has passed and somebody's saying, okay, well, in the absence of them here, then that property to which they belongs to them, then I should have a part of it. The number of cases are higher and higher by the month. So for me, then the question is, then if you see this as something that could potentially bring problems in the future, why not do the things in the present that are going to safeguard you for that time? If it is so easy to do, why not?
Think about it. What is it that gets people to even think of marriage in the first place? And when they do get married, what is it that makes them get married? Love, a child, societal pressure, clock ticking.
But that's body pressure.
Yes, age factor, peer pressure. And in all these cases, the one thing that doesn't feature is this institution that these people want to walk into. Have they sat and actually given it sufficient thought? Because there are very, very few relationships you have which are supposed to be for life. There's no retirement. Yeah, I'm not retiring from this marriage. And then
I'm not doing it again.
I've done my time.
I've done my bit. I'm not retiring. Yes. Now
Fought the good fight.
I've fought the good fight.
Wow.
Hey, and I'm exhausted. So it doesn't. But it isn't just that. Ask yourself a simple question, even when people buy land, for instance. People know that there's a title deed that you'll get when you finish paying. But if you look at the manner in which people actually very willingly and voluntarily contribute to schemes that are supposed to give them land, they don't apply very much thought to it. What takes center stage is their need for land and a cursory understanding that so and so has bought and I know so and so has bought, and that so it ought to be okay. So when things go belly up, people are left confused, they don't know what to do, And this again, we read this with almost the same frequency as we're reading about the issues of someone thinking they're in a relationship that constitutes a marriage, and then when it's challenged in court, it doesn't meet the master of what the law says. And yet everyone, you see now, everyone believes they're married. That's not what determines a marriage.
Whether
What
you
people-
believe it
No,
or
no,
not,
no.
is not. Is not.
Whether your relatives think you're married,
Mm.
that's not what constitutes it. Now, how many people do you think understand that simple thing? When you've been called wife enough time for 15 years, your wife. 15 years, long time. 10 years, long time.
But in reality,
you're not.
Yeah.
Now, that reality is something that even as we say it now, people will hear it and say, what do these people know? She's my wife.
After all, what's the difference?
I even have
between
a
me and the
house
person?
which has been built for me in the rural home. But unless
I see a breakdown somewhere, and the breakdown comes in, I think, coming from the society itself, where if we just look at everything else, what these two people have done by coming together, by cohabiting, and then by also visiting the relatives and relatives accepting, is they're assuming that they're going the traditional route, right? So it's clear they're not doing the civil union. That's why they're not going to seek a certificate. It's clear they're not going the religious route. That's why they're not going to the church or to the Kathi or to the Hindu leader. It's clear to them that it's a traditional way. That's why they went to meet the parents. That's why they participate in those family gatherings and family activities. Then that comes into the society and how then we have gotten to a point where we no longer value some of those customs as a society. And because we don't value those customs as a society, as this group of people, then we are not even pushing that this is how we shall go about it. We are not pushing that, okay, so for you guys to do this, don't just come and say, tell them Zay, and then them Zay tells you, yeah, it's okay, young man. It's just, you guys
Carry on.
Just carry on. And you assume that that is done. Because then that Mzee has not followed the customary way of saying carry on. He is not supposed to just sit back and unilaterally decide carry on. It is not his decision. It's the decision of the clan. So it shows then that either we don't understand any customs, or we have gotten to a point where we don't really value some of these customs. And in that case, in the event that we don't really value the customs, then we should be then valuing the law.
The law. One has to come into play.
The civil side of things.
One has to come into play.
Yeah, it's called permissiveness. A lot of these traditions had a strictness about them.
Yep.
Clarity. Clear.
Yep.
This is what you do, this is what you don't do. And if you do this, this is what happens. If you do this, this is what happens. If a young lady happened to stay the night in your establishment, your father had to go and visit that home and start explaining what it is that he wants to do and how he's going to go about the process. Oh yes, and you knew it, so you didn't dare because you knew. The point here is, let's put marriage here on a pedestal, just one pedestal, and let's create another pedestal and look at the concept, say for instance, of employment, right? Employment plays a very, very crucial role in the thought process that eventually leads to what we call marriage. For many men, the understanding is that for me to marry, I must have an income.
Yep.
I must be able to do certain things. Traditionally, it was you must be able to look after a wife. But that has changed somewhat these days. I hear of more of men being looked after. So that one...
Can I interrupt your thought process, City?
By all
Because Nelson is on the line and he wants to contribute to this conversation.
Please.
Nelson, good morning. Nelson, please switch off your radio, then we can have a conversation with you. This is 0719-012-600. Is your radio off? No, it's not. So, Nelson, once you do that, please call back. You'll be able to hear what your... City, go ahead.
No, all I'm saying is, if you look at the way society changes and the things that come with the change, there are certain things that the intrinsic aspect of these things don't really change. What changes is the manifestation of them. Now, the need for people to have companions is never going to go away as long as they're human beings. Now, it is how this need meets the master of the law. Now, again, our interactions with the law as Kenyans You mentioned that word. It doesn't bring with it nice, fuzzy, warm feelings.
The law?
No, it very rarely does.
It's negative.
Yes. You relate the law with the police. And now that one, any fuzzy feeling that may have
Mkono mrefu wa sheria.
passing by you, it will vanish into smoke. So, when you now then want to get into this association that is useful and beneficial to you, and you're a Kenyan, the likelihood is you're going to do what Kenyans tend to do. You will take a shortcut. The one which doesn't complicate your life too much, and one which doesn't include the law. Now, that will be lovely until the day something happens. And then now you have to go back to that same law you thought
That
you
you
had
were trying to run away
you thought
from.
you had circumvented. Then it hits you in the face.
So Nelson is now back on the line. Nelson, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I've been listening to that debate about relationship and marriage. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
And I was asking, when I was in campus at University of Dar es Salaam, I dated a lady, and with her I had 2 kids. You see? So thereafter, something materialized that was not good. Kukazuka kipindi ambacho kama si kizuri hivi. And then my kids were taken away. She got a scholarship to Canada, Toronto. And thereafter, my kids were taken away, everything. So how do you deal with that situation?
Well, according to the law, because if that's what we're looking at now, in terms of according to the law and what it says in Kenya now, for example, did you fulfill what needed to be done, whether it was civil,
Were you
whether
legally
it was,
married?
were you legally married, whether it was civil, whether it was religious, or whether it was customary?
There is a campus too.
So there's a campus.
So
I guess
no.
now the issue that you're raising
what I did
is the plight of the children that you're asking about, right?
Exactly.
All right. We don't actually know what we'd tell you. I think that the best thing that you would do is seek legal advice. Yep, from somebody.
So what are the legalities? What are the legalities?
Somebody who understands the law. In terms of if you went to court, then what would you be asking for? Would you be asking for custody of the children? Would you be asking for support of the children, or would you be asking just to be recognized as the father, the biological?
No.
father
I don't want to be recognized as the father of the children.
What do you
I
want?
want my kids back. I don't want my kids back because before I've been paying for them.
So you want custody?
School fees and other things. Yeah.
So what you're looking for then is custody of your children, and that's a totally different matter now, because then it's not that you're seeking to claim any kind of property or anything like that by virtue of being married.
I don't know.
But in all honesty, you're talking about parental rights. You do not need to be married for you.
No, you don't.
To have
parental rights.
No, you don't. You don't.
So that's a whole different matter here now, where you need to go to court. You need to speak to legal experts, and they advise you how to approach that matter in court. If you're seeking to get custody or full custody or partial custody of the children, then what's the best route to take? Right.
That's okay. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Asante sana, Nelson. 0719-012-600. Let's take a break and look at what's happening on the roads this Friday morning, and then continue this conversation. Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well, if you've got comments to the show.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay, so it's looking a little bit better on Mombasa Road as you're trying to get in and out of the CBD this morning, where it's going to be a little bit crazy for some parts of the day. It's going out west now, heading towards Narok from Maimahu. That road is still closed because of the accident that took place this morning. Hopefully it will be opened up later once that carnage has been removed. Coming off of Thika Road into the CBD, when you're coming back into Nairobi, not looking too bad right now. Some of those areas where it was clogged have been opened up. So, we're out of traffic hour, but there's still some parts where it looks a bit messy. Mombasa Road, further up there, between Mlolongo and the SGR. Gonna take some while to get out of that one. So, it's likely that the traffic situation might continue well into the evening, it being Friday and all. So you just want to be careful, guys. Too many accidents have happened this week. Let's get into the weekend without one, shall we? Spice MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
20
94
minutes to 10 o'clock. The conversation continues, and I'd like to hear from you. 0719-012-600. There's an issue of people knowing what the law says, understanding the law, and also wanting to follow the law. Because there may be other people who, I understand. Yes, I'm supposed to either get it legally recognized. But I think, City, as you said, that little matter called love, where you're just following your heart and you're thinking, I mean, come on, what could go wrong? We're in love.
Yeah.
And this is where we are at right now. When things go belly up, like you said, then that's when the law comes in and catches up, so to speak, catches up with you in the situation that you are in. Also, for example, cases where you've participated in a customary marriage, okay, and you're fully aware that you participated in customary marriage. You even went and did the 3-month notice to the registrar of marriages. Then you even got that registered. You don't recognize something that the law says, if it's a customary marriage, then it can also be polygamous. A marriage celebrated under customary law or Islamic law is presumed to be polygamous or potentially polygamous. So at some point, when spouse brings second spouse, don't start complaining, but you know I have certificate. Yeah, you do. She can also get a certificate.
Wow. I do think that a lot of people... Just be there. I think that a lot of people take the easy route, honestly. All this love story, it just is a story. I think people just don't take responsibility for something that... Because that's the thing with life. Anything could go wrong. So when they say prepare yourself for a rainy day, anything could happen. Whereas all your hopes, dreams, life, everything, the globe you've put on this relationship because of the fact that you love someone, that doesn't mean that now things are going to remain at equilibrium for the rest of your life. The possibility of something going wrong is always there, lurking in the shadows. So prepare yourself. Prepare the other person, protect yourself, and the law provides for you to do that. And I think people just don't get into it because it's the easy route. Why should you go and now start signing paper, getting form, making photo? Why should you do that when you can actually just, carry on with life and ride the wave? And I think that's what it is. Here's an option for you to protect yourself, but then you go into a very sticky situation in the future where you have to do so much to protect that which you would have protected if you were uncomfortable for 6 hours in a day.
What ought to be really alarming is when you consider that an action that involves a really important decision that you're making in your life is treated with that lack of attention to detail and care.
Yeah.
Now, what does that then say of other things that involve that your life, or rather you are involved in your life?
That you're not then attending to those matters with the attention, care, and responsibility that you should.
Look at the discussion we've been having around COVID and the way our countrymen and women and children have conducted themselves with COVID. There are those who've still adhere to the norms and try to stay safe. And then there are those who've disregarded it completely.
Totally.
And yet, it's the same thing. You are actually putting yourself in harm's way, and you are presenting yourself with an opportunity to get sick, to be infected and to get sick. There's a likelihood you may not, but that's what you are doing. Now, you tell me, someone who is actually in their right mind, why would you put yourself in a position where, apart from falling sick, you might fall sick and probably even eventually die? Why would you do that when you have an option of avoiding it? You actually have an option. It's there. And it's not the most complicated of options. Not really.
Yeah, you have an option of avoiding it. You also have an option of preparing yourself for the future,
Yes.
doing things that could essentially protect you in the future. And then that's just not done, because there's this thing of fly by the seat of your pants in the moment and everything is okay. So long as we're okay today, we don't have to worry about tomorrow. And that's the way it is. You can apply it to so many situations that often get people into a sticky pickle later. That because you just didn't take the necessary precaution, then now you're dealing with a situation that you could have avoided.
Let's hear from Ochola calling in from Mombasa. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I have an issue regarding the marriages issues that I'd like to be advised on what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is not exactly about 1 year since I broke with my fiancé. And we broke at the point whereby I had gone to her place. And, okay, you know, this kind of the customary things. There's the laws, there's this part of Teraie.
Explain what a year is so that people can understand it. What is a year?
Maybe City can help me there.
Oh, so now I ask you a question and you respond by asking me to answer your question, which I have asked you.
No, anyway, a
Clever.
year, I think, okay, to my understanding is the process whereby you are going to tell the parents of the girl that at least you've accepted to marry the girl, to marry the lady.
Okay.
Yeah, so in fact, I took some loans and I went to the place. You know, okay, it's after we had a very lengthy discussion that we are now going for it. So I took that kind of step of now going to her place, and I took the part of the money that they wanted for me to take in form of a year, which I took about 200,000. Then it happens that there was a time that the father of my fiancé passed away, and again, according to the law customs, when your father-in-law passed away, before you take the dowry part of it, there must be something in form of animal that must be taken to the girl's place before the father is buried. So I went to my parents and they gave me about 2 animals. Which
Can
I
you
rushed
tell us
and I took
what specific animals you're referring to?
These are cow.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, which I rushed and I took them there. Then we went through the process of the burial of the father. We cleared everything. Then after that, just during this COVID period, things started. Okay, something happened, and then my fiancé just decided to call off the relationship.
All right.
Yeah, because now, okay, what happened was, I don't think if it is just too much, because to me, I was trying to put down my grounds now. You know, as a man, there are things that you have to say, okay, fine, now we are now going towards the marriage line. These are the kind of things, this is the way I want you to behave, or this is the way I want things to be done in this process. And I think some of them were a bit, I don't know if she found them to be so
There was
strict on her.
some irreducible minimums from either
Yeah,
of the ends.
then she decided to call off the marriage.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what to do, because it's not exactly 1 year. I've been trying to think about it.
What does your custom say? Because you've started that route, then I guess the answer comes from the custom and the elders. What does the custom say? If you have started the process, you've gone to the point of a year, you've done all this, but then before you proceed, something happens. Let's say you break up, or even something like death happens. Then what should happen after that? Customarily.
Okay, that's the part that I'm not very much conversant with the customary issues that I'd like to be advised, because you know, she just called it off, and now she doesn't want even to talk. I've been trying to even to reach her through the relatives, through her relatives. She's even threatening me that, oh, you should not call my relatives. You knew those people through me, so don't make a mistake of calling them.
What do your relatives say?
Okay, my relatives they're also mum about it. They've never given me a clear cut because, okay, there was a time that I told Nini, I called one of our father, the one who's now maybe remaining in the place of our father, and the agreement was that they were supposed to go and talk to my parents and maybe come up with a solution, which I think she communicated to the father that the whole issue has come to an end.
All
And
right.
I think
I guess
she's a bit
Ochola,
barbaric.
what you're asking is what should happen next. From
Yes.
where I see it, I see you've started
Yes.
a customary process, then follow what the custom says. I am sure there is what is prescribed in the custom, the Luo custom of what happens in such an instance. Then what you ought to do is find out what is it that should happen. If you're required to formally report to her side, if she's required to formally report, if you're required to take wazes, whatever is required, I'm sure is already prescribed in the culture and the customs. So just find out. That is what you ought to.
But you see, the difficulty part of it is that she doesn't want to go home.
All right.
She's in
And what do
Nairobi,
you want?
and I've been with me what I want, because now I can't force things. Yeah, I can't force things because if she has decided to terminate the whole process, then I also have to move on with my life.
Exactly.
And-
It takes two to tango,
and-
man. You can't force her if she's not
Yeah,
interested.
I can't
then-
force her.
Yeah.
Yeah, because but by the time, even before I entered into the whole process, in fact, I took her home. And she's the one who declared to my parents, in front of my parents. Oh, in fact, now when I was now trying to move into the whole process, I thought that I was moving on with a serious person.
Yeah. Ochola,
But
I
you see,
think
this person-
what we can tell you is that's a decision that, first of all, you have to personally make. But I would also advise that because you've already brought in the custom and you've already brought in the elders of the custom, then go back to the elders and ask this question that you're asking: what can I do, or what should I do? It should come from those who understand the custom, and they should tell you exactly what to do. If you go to them and clearly say, I want to terminate this and I want that to be on record that I came, but that was the end of it, then they'll tell you how to go about it.
Yeah, because I
Asante
don't
sana.
want to go through the court process because
It's not a court process.
It's not a court process. You've not got
it's
into
a cultural
Ochola,
issue.
you began this on a customary note, and
Yeah.
the solution lies in that customary process.
Yeah. Thank you,
Okay,
Ochola.
thank you very much. Thank
Asante
you very much, Erika Citians and Nduh.
Asante. Some questions also coming in on our social media, and this is with regards to our broadcast this week. Weissman says he was just tuned in, and then at some point we went off air and some music started playing, and now the frequency is back and you can hear us. Same thing that's being said by Becky, listening from Nairobi. So this is a phenomenon that's called sun outage, all right? So sun outage, okay, I'm just going to explain this briefly. We are broadcasting from the studios at Standard Group in Nairobi. Our frequency is then transmitted to our transmission center, which is in Limuru. From here to Limuru, satellite. And then the same frequency, the same signal that goes to the satellite is taken to other transmission centers around the country. When I say 87.9 in Mombasa, we've got transmitters in Mombasa. We've got transmitters in Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. Twice in a year, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, there's something called the sun outage. And the sun outage occurs before the March equinox, that is in February and March, and after the September equinox, that is in September and October, and occurs in March before the September equinox for the Southern Hemisphere. So let's focus on the Northern Hemisphere. So what happens here is the sun fade is an interruption or distortion of geostationary satellite signals caused by interference or background noise of the sun when it falls directly behind a satellite, which an Earth station is trying to receive data from. So our satellites up there where we are sending the signal, the sun decides, I'm going to interfere. So sun interferes for a while, and therefore our transmitters are then not able to receive the signal from the satellite, and then they're not able to transmit this signal that we are broadcasting here. And then automatically at the transmission station, when that signal is not received, it switches into playing some music just to fill the gap. and then he will get us back. So that's what's happening. Sio sisi, sio
Hawa.
sio madimoni. It's blame it on the sun.
Not the rain.
Not the rain. Blame it on the sun. But we are glad that wise man, you're back online. Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, gentlemen, and gentle lady.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know we are coming to the end, so I'm going to be very brief.
Yes.
First of all, I read about what you have explained yesterday.
Mm.
And I was now happy to know that. Now, let me talk about that gentleman who has talked just now.
Mm.
That what he encountered with is not a wife to be.
Yep.
He just encountered with some corner artist there. And unfortunately, this is happening so much, especially in our prison centre, because people have monetized their girls, you know.
Mm.
So you go, you talk to a lady in town there, like I go to Nakuru, I talk to a certain lady. Kube, there's a long chain of con artist family, yeah?
Mm.
But also for him, even according to the way he's talking, he is somehow, you know, let him have a command, yeah? For him to be taken seriously, yeah?
Okay.
And actually, these days, Mr. Eric, if you have nothing and you go and, you know, tag with a lady, and then you be a kid, the only thing that the community is going to do is to congratulate you that, oh, through all the poverty and hardship, you have been able to bring up these kids, yeah? And even when you die, nobody comes to claim you because they know you have nothing. But for these guys who have money, like you guys, you have money, yeah?
Amen.
Wariwadro there has been working. If he dies, you know, even here, I have heard him say that he was used to be in Vika area, yeah? You know, here, you know, see what some Wajiros and Waizeras and Wajikos pop up and say, oh, this old guy here, we are the ones who used to take him out of the house because he even couldn't see, yeah? Because they after their money, you know, after the money.
Yeah.
You see, and he would be buried, yeah? But if a pauper there dies,
nobody
people
will
will say, oh, we thank God that this guy was able to say, you are a boy or a girl, and through hardships.
So it's all about the property.
This is the property, my friend. If you know that you have nothing, there's no need of regularizing your marriage. But if you know that you are chummed, yeah, if you have cheddar in your pocket and in your account, yeah, go and legalize it so that you prevent those. You know, there are even women eaters.
Zakari wewe sasa.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
Thank you, and have a nice weekend.
You too, have a
Cheers,
nice one.
Zachary.
Okay.
Dave Ogala says, cohabitation is not marriage internship. It is not even a marriage test. It's the biggest illusion you can get yourself into. It is not internship. It's not a test. You're not test driving. Nothing.
It's an elongated sleepover. I keep saying. Then you wake up and fry eggs, and then you go back. Nothing is happening there. Especially now when
you're not being figurative here with the frying of eggs, are you?
This is like the kind of conversation now, you know, when it goes deeper into the nitty-gritties of how you meet, how you then cohabit, and how you relate with one another. These are the kind of conversations that the adults in the room will always have discussing every day, every weekday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Emmanuel, Barbara, and Eric tune into the adults in the room. So as we come to the end of the week in the show, let's just remind you about the waiver, 100% waiver of interest and penalties by the Nairobi County government. So take advantage of this if you have defaulted in land rates. Take advantage of this because the window closes on the 15th of October. You have until the 15th of October. Take advantage of this. If you don't do that, then you will have to pay the penalties and all the interest that has accrued since the date you should have paid. CT, the week's proverb?
The day's proverb. Thought I was going to fall for that one.
Yeah.
The house of a person we love is never far. Never. Not a bother. Not an issue. Come the day when that love isn't what it was. it becomes the furthest place on the planet. And it'll be characterized by you're never going there.
Yep. Not being able to access.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Ochola in Mombasa. He just gave us an example.
You see,
one time, not a difficult place.
not a
hard.
difficult place at all. Essentially, you're talking about relationships. Essentially, you're talking about the vagaries and sometimes the vicissitudes that come with human beings relating to each other.
Yeah.
And some of the things that come up and the net effect. Because when you say it's not far, there's a time when it's really far. And that's an indication that things aren't going quite as well. On the political sphere, you could actually have thousands of examples. People who were once bosom buddies.
Darlings.
Now at loggerheads. People who at some point also were at dagger's end. Now, bosom buddies. Yes.
All right. Asante sana for tuning into the Situation Room this week. Join us again next week, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Remember, the adults in the room will be here from 7 o'clock to 10 p.m. And before that, you'll be going home with Monique from 3 to 7. Until then, some good music. Lovely weekend, people. It's now 10 o'clock.